Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass Podcast. This for UFC Vegas 59. We will get to those fights in a little bit. It's a pretty dodgy card top to bottom. You know, we'll go through all the fights as we usually do. Cody Saftic, obviously on the line. Pat Mayo on the sticks. But we have a special guest, a very special guest. And we never have guests on this program, so you know it's the real deal. Rated R, Max Rohskopf joined us on the pod. You know, the future Bellator champion, as far as I'm concerned. One step at a time. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but really happy to have you on the program, Max. Yeah, as I said, we actually never have guests on the show. And when our buddy at tax_n stats and stacks reached out to me, said that your aunt was like friends with his wife, I was just like, we got to get him on the show. So really, really glad that you took some time out of your busy schedule to come visit us and chat it up with us here.
You know, guys, I'm glad to be here. I love talking to new people and being on these types of podcasts. It takes nothing out of my day. It's fun for me. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'd like to say Paul's not just fluffing you up either. So prior to, obviously, casual fans will know you from your UFC debut against Austin Hubbard. But going into that fight, Paul was super heavy on you then, saying, yes, you were young, but his favorite style is these guys that can go out and wrestle, athletic wrestlers, grinders that have great jiu-jitsu as well. And so on paper, you're a guy that wrestled at North Carolina State. You're a Drysdale BJJ black belt. You had all those intangible skills. And also, if you go back to your wrestling career, you're a very athletic wrestler. You're known for your top game in wrestling, right? So just something that'll translate over. And then one bad performance, and we want to talk about this, but you see people, you know, just recently this weekend, Amanda Nunes defends a world title, but the fight previous against Julianna Pena, well, they're saying, you know, she quit, and could you come back from that? Charles Oliveira, current world champion of the world, guy had multiple instances where people said he's quit. Justin Gaethje says once a quitter, always a quitter. And then Charles comes in and puts a wrecking on him and kind of clarifies things. So we kind of feel that you were untreated fairly, but Paul was high on you when you made your debut. Now you've had some time off. You've changed things in your life. We'd love to talk about where you're at now that you signed with Bellator as well. But yeah, he believed in you then. He believes in you now. Like, you do have all those skills. So we're happy to have you on the show.
And I'm pumped. Love to talk about all this stuff. I really haven't talked about all this stuff with anyone other than like my personal group of friends out here. I haven't really talked to, I've talked to actually some media people, but like personally, not on a platform like this. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, let's walk through it. It's like you took that fight against Austin Hubbard on like 2 weeks notice, if memory serves me correct. And round one, you came in. Yeah, even less than that. Round one, you came in. We saw all the skills that I saw on tape. I'm like, this guy, collegiate wrestler, grappling. Yep, check up all those boxes. And, you know, Austin Hubbard guy training at elevation. As the fight wore on, short notice, everything like that, you know, everyone has a bad day. Most of us, you know, when we have a bad day, we don't get off of our lazy asses off of the couch. You know, when you have a bad day, you're in there with a trained killer. Like, I thought the whole situation was just poorly handled. Some of the idiots online talking smack about all of it. Like, I just thought the whole thing was really, really disgusting. And I couldn't believe that the UFC didn't keep you on, because when I did tape leading into that Hubbard fight, I was just like, this guy's got all the goods. He's, at that point, you were 25 years old, onwards and upwards. So I'm glad that, you know, you went through that. It probably made you a better person. And, you know, absolutely smashed through Cage Warriors. And now you get an opportunity to rise to the top with the skill set that you've got.
Yeah, no, the whole situation was definitely not what I expected. I think I took the fight on Sunday and the fight was on Friday. So it was like 4 or 5 days. And I walk around about anywhere from 75 to 180. And that's about what I was. And I actually wasn't training for almost 2 weeks because I was injured. So like I was on the couch for 2 weeks before I got the call. And at the time, I was just very confident in my ability to compete, even though not being prepared. But I definitely, you know, didn't. I didn't even show in that. And that's what, when people come to me afterwards and they say, oh, the first round looked good. And, you just gassed out. Honestly, I think the first round, actually, I've never went back and watched it, but I just know how I felt. That was like nothing compared to what I am capable of. Generally, if I get a takedown, and this is against, and I only know this because of what I feel when I train with guys at that level, is if I get a takedown, they're not getting up. And I think he got an escape off my first takedown, like, immediately. And that's just not something. So that was kind of like very hard on me, I guess, mentally in the middle of the fight. And then something else that kind of happened, and I never really told anyone besides my coaches and maybe my manager at the time, but I think I only told Drysdale and Dewey Cooper that so with, like, after the weight cut, I walk around 75, 80. After the weight cut, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was because I was nervous or the pressure was getting to me or I didn't do something right on my weight cut, but after I rehydrate, after I weigh in, I'm normally back to 75 easy. For whatever reason, when I stepped in the cage for my UFC debut, I was 160 still. So I didn't, I guess, replenish my body the right way. So I was 15 pounds light still as I was walking into the cage, basically in the middle of a weight cut. So that didn't help either.
So Paul and I talk about this all the time because, neither of us are fighters. We do a show, we break down fights. The vast majority of our audience, I would say 99% of them, are non-fighters as well. There's the odd person that dabbles in jiu-jitsu or wrestles, but nobody really goes out there and competes, especially at that professional level. So you're going into this third round. You had a good first round. You didn't feel yourself, but you get through the first. The second round, the tide's starting to change. Fatigue setting in. Beyond that, people don't understand. You're short notice, right? So it's not as if you don't have good cardio, but you've taken it short. But also damage starts to pile up. In that third round, people are calling you a quitter for being in a moment that they've never experienced, and that obviously most people would never put themselves in that situation to begin with. So just put me into your mentality there, right? Because I'm backing you up in the sense that if you go in the third round, people have an expectation. I don't know what it is in MMA as a difference to boxing. In boxing, guys retire between rounds all the time. Guys break their hand after the sixth round, they call it off. The corner weighs the towel in, it's no problem and nobody falls to them. In MMA, that there's this idea that even though you have a broken hand and you have a torn labrum and you have a torn meniscus and you were sick the week before, you need to go in and get drubbed in that third round because I bet money on it. Like, how do you deal with that? Like, what kind of mindset is it to say, I'm going to save myself to fight on instead of just go out there and get beaten to prove my bravado?
My mindset wasn't to live the fight another day. That's not what I was worried about. And, I think you see it every single UFC card, every single Bellator card, almost every card you ever see. I don't think there's much of a difference between laying in turtle, covering up your hands like this, and getting TKO'd than it is to be a man about it and be like, all right, well, I'm not going to go out there and take a couple shots and lay in turtle and just quit like that. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to say it and just be a man about it. Like, hey, like I don't have it in me right now. And that's what I kind of just decided to do. But you saw it over the weekend, this last weekend, like people are laying in turtle, just covering up in fetal position. And they think that they're like bigger or higher or mightier or tougher than someone who, like me, that did what I did. I don't think there's really any of a difference at all. But as far as like my mindset, when I kind of decided to make that decision, when I was sitting on the stool, it was like, what was going on in my mind was, I've spent my entire life since I started wrestling when I was 12. And it's hard talking about myself, but people who I grew up with can probably attest to this, and people who saw me wrestling in college can attest to this, and people who I train with now can attest to this. Up until recently, and I have changed it because I don't know if it's necessarily healthy, but my entire life since I've started wrestling has been literally nothing but training. I put school on the back burner, any type of education on the back burner, any type of social situations, parties, stuff like that on the back burner. And I've done an amount of training that I don't think people can understand how hard it is. I try to I think it's kind of funny, but I don't know if anyone understands it. I'm just kind of a nerd about like your endocrine system and stuff like that. But like, if you've never trained so hard that like you can feel your testosterone drop and like stuff like that, then you don't really know like what overtraining's like. But I've trained so hard that people who've never even come close to that can't understand. So then when I've put in all this work and everything kind of comes down to that moment, getting into my UFC debut, something I've worked for a long time. And now I get there and now I'm not performing the way I feel like I could or I should. It feels like, all right, well, now all the work that I've done up until this point is basically just a fucking waste of time. And what am I doing here? Like, because I've also realized throughout my wrestling career and then now my fighting career that, you know, sometimes it doesn't matter how hard you work. Everyone works hard. That's one of like my kind of biggest pet peeves too. And that's why I don't like talking about it, is when like before fights, people talk about, oh, I've trained the hardest I've ever trained and I'm in the best shape and I work harder than everyone else. There's one person on the entire planet out of however many people are on the planet that can say they work harder than everyone else. One. And I don't know who that person is, but not everyone can work harder than everyone else. So I don't know why people talk like that, but I felt like I put in a certain amount of work that I didn't get the result I wanted. So I felt like I was kind of just wasting my time in there. And that's why I made the decision that I made.
We're dwelling a lot on the past here. Let's look forward to the future. You've got obviously a few weeks ago signed with Bellator, moving on up to there. Do you have a timetable, like when you want to have your first fight with Bellator? Do you have an opponent lined up? I haven't seen anything online yet, and I would probably be aware because I'm like a super fan. The people of the interwebs are pretty well known of that. I was looking through. I mean, I'm the super fan. I was looking through their top 10, and I was just like, win. But obviously, they're gonna start you somewhere else. Get your feet wet in Bellator before you work your way up to the guys in the top 10 here. Do you know when you're gonna be making your Bellator debut yet, or?
I do know. I don't know what the deal is about them announcing it. I signed my multi-fight deal, and what was crazy is, I don't know if you guys have seen pictures of me before, but my hair is not normally curly and like this, and it was crazy. The day after I signed my multi-fight deal with Bellator, I woke up and my hair was curly. I don't know what happened. Something changed.
Yeah, well, you know what? Ever since they lost Ben Askren, they've been desperately needing a guy to come out here and put a little American wrestling grind on the rest of the division. So as soon as you actually turned on the webcam earlier, I was like, he's got the funk going.
Yeah, I didn't do anything to it. I woke up like this one day, and it hasn't went back straight since. So I don't know what's going on, but yeah, I know when my first it's going to be October 1st, I believe, in Long Beach. And if they haven't announced the opponent, then I'm probably not super. I probably shouldn't announce it here. But I do know, at least I have an idea. That's one thing about my career so far, is I haven't really, it's 8 weeks out. Anything can happen. I can sign an bout agreement 8 weeks, and then 4 weeks from now, or 2 weeks before the fight, or a week before the fight, it can change. So, yeah, but I will be more than most likely fighting October 1st on the October 1st card.
October 1st, mark it on your calendar. Looking forward to that.
I had a question. So going into this Bellator debut as well, so you start your career off and it's all first round submissions, right? And so when you get to the UFC, even though you're a talented prospect, the thought process is, well, we've never seen him outside of the first round. And Paul and I break this down all the time when we talk about fighters, whether it be contenders or PFL or Bellator or UFC, is when you haven't seen these guys in prolonged exchanges, it's an unknown. They could be great shape. They could be cardio machines, but you still have to see it. So the Austin Hubbard fight, that was the first time people saw you in that second round, and their perception is, well, he fell apart. Your next one against Geoff Creighton, you just smoke him out in there in the first round. So again, we haven't seen it, but against Jordan Bailey, you got a good hard 15 minutes in. First time you'd been decision. First time you had felt that 3 rounds. How much experience has that done for you? Being able to say, you know what, I've gone the 15. I know how to pace myself. I've gotten those rounds in, and you can kind of shake off some of that perception that maybe you're a do or die guy in the first couple rounds.
I mean, it was kind of a mood thing with the Jordan Bailey fight. I don't know what it was. I was having some health issues before that where I had to go see like a specialist and stuff like that. So I was not in the best shape for that fight. I think you could tell it by just the way my body looked. I was not in the best shape for that fight. And so going into that, I was like, I'm going to pace myself. I'm going to wear him down. I'm going to stay consistent with pressure, and I'm not going to do anything, I guess, drastic. And, keep wearing on him, because that's one thing. And that's what's been one of the hardest things. I think in my fighting career so far is balancing what I think and then what all my coaches and all my teammates and everyone around me is telling me. Because everyone I train with, I don't think so, but they'll be like, you have the best cardio in the gym. You're a grinder. You're this, you're that. You have the talent to do this or whatever. And in my head, I just don't think so. I don't actually believe that.
Because of your upbringing, though, right? I mean, you had a rough childhood in Ohio, and I mean, it's well documented that, your self-esteem wasn't the highest growing up. So do you think that's something that lingers with you now still?
Yeah, it's really weird. Like, I'm very proud that I grew up the way I did, and I'm very grateful, but also it's very hard for me to truly believe that I either am what I am or I am what other people tell me that I am based on what they see or what they feel when I'm training with them or when they're watching me train or whatever. It's definitely it's pretty hard to navigate. Like, I'm sitting here trying to think about it now, and it's very hard. And I've seen sports, I guess, psychologists, you would call them. I saw one in college. I had to see one in college because my coaches thought I was batshit crazy, but they made me see one. And then I saw a couple since I've been out of college, and it just doesn't. I've tried to get like help for it, and it just doesn't work for me.
Well, like Paul was mentioning, that top 10 in Bellator, honestly, the most favorable matchup that I see for you there is that number 9 Miles Jury, just because you do have the wrestling and grappling. But Miles Jury is a guy that was well documented from fanning out of the UFC and saying specifically, I need to see a sports psychologist. What do you think the difference between an actual psychologist helping with, childhood trauma as opposed to a sports psychologist? I know this seems like a loaded question, but I guess the real idea here is a lot of people say, like, in order to be an MMA fighter, you have to believe that you're the best in the world. But you're sitting here not necessarily saying, I think I'm the best in the world. I just like to compete. Even before the show started, you mentioned, more so than going out there and winning a world title and becoming a millionaire, you want to teach kids wrestling. Like, that's where your real passion is. Like, do you have to believe to be an MMA fighter that you're the greatest and you can beat everybody? Where's the confidence have to be?
I believe just based on what I feel when I train, that I am up there I can compete with anyone in the world at my weight. Because I've trained with some of the best guys in the world at my weight. I've trained with some of the best guys in the world up a weight, actually up several weights. Most of the guys I spar right now, actually, at Extreme Couture, are all the guys who fight in the UFC at 185. And those are most of the guys I go with sparring. So it's like, I know that I have the ability to do it, but I also understand having the ability to do it and being able to do it, walking around on the street or going to the gym. And then it's another thing to do it, when the lights are on and everyone's watching you, and it's not, I guess, when the stakes are higher, I guess. And I haven't proven to myself at any point in my career that I can do that. I've proven to myself I can do it just walking around. If we're going to say, all right, we're going to have a fist fight in the gym or anywhere else, or on certain nights when I've competed, but to do it consistently every single time, I haven't proven that yet.
Who are the guys at the gym that you spent most of your time training with?
Chris Curtis, Sean Strickland, but I also mostly just grapple with him. He's a little I'll spar with him, but he kind of
he's known for being crazy.
Yeah, I know he's not good to spar with.
Well, it's like, if I was taller, I feel like I would do a little bit better, but he's so much longer than me, and I actually, with my striking, I do rely on my height over most 55ers and even 70-pounders. But when they're longer than me, it actually fucks me up. Like, it it's different. And I actually have another kid who just fought on the Contender Series, Daniel Zolber. He's from Mexico City. He just moved here like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and I've been training with him nonstop. He's getting ready to make his either UFC debut or his second UFC fight. He's 12-0. He's like 6'2", but my weight. So I've been training with him a ton. Erick Nixick, my coach, kind of took him under his wing, and then Erick came to me and was like, "Hey, like, there's a young kid. He's fighting the UFC now. Has a little bit of experience, but he kind of has me and him working together. So I'm helping him a ton on his grappling and, his takedown defense. And then he gives me a lot of problems because he's very rangier than me with his striking. So we've been training a lot together. When Dan Igue's in camp, I train a lot with him, especially for his last fight because he was fighting a more traditional wrestler, boxer. Chris Curtis, Sean Strickland. I can't remember his name. He's fighting. He just fought Rory McDonald. I train with him a lot. He just fought Rory McDonald and beat him to a decision.
Oh, Rory, yeah.
He's
Sai.
Sadibusi.
Yeah, Sadibusi.
Yeah,
that guy's. You're fighting. You're fighting
he's
big
another
dudes.
big, tall. Yeah, you know what, man? When he fought Rory could not take him down, and his wrestling defense hasn't really all been that good throughout the course of his career. But that was by far the best it's ever looked. So interesting to know that Max has been working with him.
Yeah, and then it was funny. He came back after his fight, and he looked at me. He's like, "Dude, like he didn't feel nothing like you do." And so, I mean, that's a good, like, ego boost, I guess. But, feeling that way and feeling that high of a level in the gym is not the same as, I want to feel that way when I go and fight, too. So,
last question from me. You're with Bellator now. You've obviously got a fight booked, and you've got interesting fights coming up. Would you rather have a high-profile Bellator fight? I see AJ McKee just moved up to 55. I see, obviously, they got a talented roster of Benson Henderson, former UFC champion. Would you rather have that fight? Or would you rather have the Austin Hubbard fight back? He's released from the promotion, just won an ex-MMA, free agent kind of guy. Would you rather run that back with a full camp, or have you moved past it?
I'd rather have the Austin Hubbard fight back, but I will fight literally anyone. And and my manager knows that, and that's why we even took the short notice fight in the first place on 4 or 5 days notice. Because that's my attitude. I actually accepted a short notice fight with Bellator before I signed my multi-fight deal. And that's kind of why how the whole contract thing happened. Because I accepted a fight with a up-and-coming guy who wrestled NCAA wrestling, wrestled at Division I around the same time I did. And he was looking for a short notice fight. And I accepted that I would step in on like a week's notice because I was kind of in shape already. And his manager said no, so that's kind of how the whole contract situation happened. But, I'm ready to step in. As long as I'm in shape, I'm good.
Well, we look forward to cashing tickets on you, man. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, October 1st. Mark it down on your calendar. If you have anything to promote right now, now's the time. The floor is yours, Max.
I just want to thank my sponsors, Fresh and Lean, for sending me food every week. Keeping me fed. I don't got no money, so having a little bit of food when I have no money is pretty nice. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, man. All right, pitter patter. Let's get at her. We've got Jamahal Hill taking on Thiago Santos. Hill a -315 favorite. Thiago Santos can be had for +265. Obviously, this show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use code DOP to get a match bonus up to $100 on your first deposit. I mean, I kind of think that Jamahal Hill is a little bit too fast for Thiago Santos. I'm kind of disappointed to see Thiago Santos in another 5-round fight. Like, we've seen this song and dance over and over and over. I know that he had a really, really good fight against John Jones way back when, but it's like we kind of know. It's like either Thiago Santos can like slow down the fight to a creeping halt, make it a really tepid striking affair, or he's going to gas out like around like the 2.5 round mark. I think Jamahal Hill's way too fast for him, but minus 315 against a guy who's a proven 5-round fighter, it is definitely a little bit wide as far as I'm concerned. Hill will be the pick. Don't know if I'm going to get there from a betting perspective. Interested, obviously, in what Cody Saftic has to say.
Yeah, well, I got Hill as well. He's a big favorite. I guess you could put him on the top of your ticket and then hedge out very easily at the end of the night if you wanted to because of that big plus money on the other side. But yeah, I'm just not on team Thiago Santos. I mean, obviously at this stage in his career, he's a lot older, Paul. And if you look at the history of him, it just hasn't – you date his best career success back to his UFC title fight with John Jones, where he fought him in a split decision. I don't think it should have been a split decision, but still he came forward and chucked bombs the entire time, enough so that one judge had given it to him. But he wrecks both of his knees in the process, right? I mean, we're talking ACL, MCL, PCL. He has like reconstructive surgery to both of them. And since he's come back, it's just been like less than kind. Against Glover, he had some moments where he stunned Glover, but then as soon as the fight hit the ground, he was just a fish out of water and gassed out relatively quickly. Against Alexander Rakic, he never let his hands go. He was a deer in headlights, got caught staring too long. Against Johnny Walker, it was a terrible fight. If somebody told you Johnny Walker was fighting Thiago Santos, it's let me rub my hands together. This is going to be violent. But Thiago had shown at that point that the previous two fights, Glover was a violent fight, Rakic wasn't. He's already on the decline. The Rakic fight was boring, and as you once you know it, the Johnny Walker fight is boring. Now, you and I both bet him that night, and I do believe he won. It was greasy, man. Just nothing happened. Like, Walker's faking the whole time, and John Kavanagh's telling him, you're winning. And Thiago just doesn't do much. A couple leg kicks here and there. Maybe that's what decided it for him. But that second straight performance where he's not looking to engage, and he has looked like a shell of himself since the John Jones fight. And then the Magomed Ankalaev fight. Interesting because the easiest path to victory for Ankalaev would have just been to take him down. But instead, he stands with them as he's been known to do these days and kind of just pushes forward, stays in the pocket, and once you know it, Thiago Santos over the course of 25 minutes just doesn't let his hands go. Briefly, he does land a nice counter and knock Ankalaev to the ground. I think we were all shitting our pants for a moment anyways, but as soon as Ankalaev jumps back up, it's not as if he pursued him. It's not as if he tried to pounce on him. It's not as if he tried to capitalize on that one singular moment of success. He just went back to doing the same thing he always does, which is kind of back up towards the cage and wait to counter. He's turning into a light heavyweight Tyron Woodley. He's got the guns. He's just too gun shy, like he's not letting his power go. He just wall walks, goes back to the cage, and waits for that one opportunity that sometimes just never presents itself. For Hill, obviously, he's long, he's rangy, southpaw, he's got a beautiful left hand, and I think that he can go 3 rounds. I think he can go 5 rounds, which will be needed in this fight. You don't get to see it from him because, unfortunately, all of his fights end pretty damn early, but this is a guy I think that's going to be able to carry his power into later rounds. He's going to be able to fight a similar game plan to Ankalaev, which is smart pressure, stay just out of range. Thiago Santos tends to wind up on everything. Everything comes a little slower. So just touch him up with the jab, draw out the counter, step back, and then give him the straight left hand. I think he's got multiple weapons. He's got a nasty little body kick as well. Chip away at the bigger man. Yes, it's probably going to go into some later rounds just because I don't think Hill's going to necessarily push the envelope too early. Like, I don't think you want to go out there and brawl with a guy like Thiago Santos as much as you want to methodically pick away at him until he's too tired that maybe you can make something happen. So I'm thinking either late round stoppage, 4 or 5 for Hill, or maybe a decision for Hill. So he's going to have to mind his P's and Q's. But yeah, I think he gets the job done. So I got Hill. He'll be at the top of the ticket this week because, again, it does give you the hedge out option. And I think at 3-1, a little bit too big, but still a rightful favorite and probably does get the win.
Yeah, on Prize Picks, his significant strike total is 30.5. It's just like Thiago Santos is definitely, coming to the end of the line here. And, Hill does have power. He, knocked out Johnny Walker super quick, knocked out Jimmy Crute really quick, got subbed. Well, not even subbed. His arm just literally started dangling on him against Paul Craig. But it's like when he got to the second round against OSP, a similar type of opponent in the sense that it's like a little bit more of a slow plodding guy, half decent durability. He got to 68, and that fight was ended in the second round. When he took on Darko Stosic, 101. Jamahal Hill against Alexander Popek, he got to 93 significant strikes. So it's like if we get to
don't finish it.
Yeah, if you don't, it's a 5-round fight. It's like if we get to the third round, I'm pretty confident that over 30.5 significant strikes seems like a pretty good play. Could it get finished earlier? Of course it could. That's, when you strip down to your underwear and fight for money, these things happen. But I think over 30.5 significant strikes is a pretty good look on prize.
Yeah, that's the worry though. When you look at Hill, obviously he's a potent finisher. Took out Johnny Walker in one single round, and I think Johnny Walker is. I don't think he's very good, but I think he's chinny. But look at Johnny Walker has actually gone the distance in his subsequent couple fights. Like maybe not that bad, but he takes him out in one. Jimmy Crute, tough young prospect, takes him out in 48 seconds. Alvin St. Preux fight, which was right before the Paul Craig one. Same thing, like he's a potent finisher. We know that. Thiago Santos hasn't been finished in a while. I'm just a little bit worried about like the quality of guys that have finished him, because like Dave Branch knocked him out in 2.5 minutes standing. It wasn't.
Yeah, of course,
it wasn't pretty. And of course, and this is a perfect segue. He's got knocked out by the guy that's in his co-main event, Vicente Luque, fights at 170 pounds, knocked him out. The dude spent the best part of his career at 185. Had one good moment against John Jones at 205, wrecked his knees, married Yana Kunitskaya, has been on a terrible slide since he's come back. Like him getting knocked out in the first or second round, it's there for pride for the taking.
He knocked out Jan,
but I think he'll still hit that over. That was Jan before Jan was Jan. You know what I'm saying about that? And if you watch the fight, Jan actually kind of is working his way back into it in the second round. Maybe wins the second round, but certainly like tide's starting to change and Thiago's getting a little bit tired. And then in the third round, Jan just like hands down, heads up, blitzes him on a straight line and he just counters him. But if you look at Jan Blachwitz's career prior to losing that fight, as opposed to after losing that fight, that's where he kind of like got that whole Polish power thing going, right? I guess not. He had won 4 straight fights before he lost to Thiago Santos. But, he went on his run after that. Rockhold, Souza, Corey Anderson, Dominic Reyes, Izzy Adesanya. Like, I don't know. Obviously, the guy's got power. Look at him. Dude's got a giant hammer tattooed in his chest. He looks extremely menacing. He's piped up. He's ready to go. But puncher's chance, like it's slim for me. It's not like Hill's chinny. When has Jamahal Hill showed that he's chinny? Right? It's just you're waiting on like that one big counter. Well, he landed that one big counter on Ankalaev, who's not chinny. Ankalaev took it, went down, got back up, and Santos is still staring at him. It's just not enough for me.
I think 30.5 is way too low. It's making my prize picks card. I think it's probably making Pat's prize picks card.
I'd take it.
Cody,
over. I'm just saying he could knock him out. He could be primed for the knockout. Is all I'm saying.
Of course, he could flying armbar him in the first 2 seconds. These things could happen in MMA. Pat,
sure.
By the way, we swept the board on Prize Picks last week.
Well, you did. I sucked.
The random ones Cody gave me for Dana White Dancing with the Stars, that hit.
We got the stars.
We got the UFC one. My guy John Kelly. Everyone should follow John Kelly. He gave one out. Played that one too. Got it out there to the people. 3x. Just building them up easy. We're back on track.
Adding Hill over 30.5 significant strikes, Pat?
I wanted to add, that's why I put my hand up and you hit on it already. Like, it just looks so low. It feels so trappy. I don't know if it's going to make my 2 favorite by the end of the card. I don't know.
He's got to,
Cody scared me a bit.
He's got to get knocked out in the first 7.5 minutes, I think. Otherwise, Hill cruises over 30.5 significant strikes.
7.5 minutes is a long time, dog. Ask the last 2 guys that Jamahal Hill's fought.
Thiago Santos would just like stay at range, eat some shots. He's a lot better at like not charging in these days than he was before. He
fights
picks his spots.
His knees are blown out. He knows he can't move forward, so he just sits in one spot and waits for you to come.
Well, that's the funny thing with Prize Picks is that it's like less about Hill and more on Santos. It's like, can Santos just hold on for 2 rounds?
Yeah.
If we get through 2 rounds, I'm pretty confident 30.5 significant strikes is a winner.
I'm with you. I said late stoppage, 4th or 5th. Like, I'm sticking with that. So I hear you. I think he hits the over. It's just, I always think, what's my worst case scenario? And I know what you're saying. MMA, anything can happen. But in this particular instance, we know that Santos ain't what he used to be. And Hill's looking to make a statement. He can jump right
you
into a
were
title
earlier
fight
saying, I think he takes him into deeper waters in this fight. And then you're poo-pooing on the 30.5 significant strikes.
I have to give you the other side of the argument so we can see what we're up against and make a final decision.
I know what I'm
making our final decision. We're all taking the over on the strikes. So Pat's right. Feels trappy. I'm saying, why does it feel trappy? Because this is the trap.
Small
we can't
cage.
See it.
Small cage in the apex too. Like, there's not much room to maneuver. Trap. All right, well, moving on down, we got Vicente Luque taking on Geoff Neal, -165 Luque, +145 Neal. I like Vicente Luque, but here's the thing, and I think it's like a misconception about him. It's like a lot of people are probably going to look at this and be like, well, Luque, if he gets this fight to the mat, he's got such a great grappling game. It's like the dude hasn't landed a takedown since Leon Edwards in 2017. Did I get that right? Yes. He just doesn't shoot for takedowns. Now, he's had submissions during that time, but it's usually like in scrambles or somebody else takes him down. He reverses it. Like, he's a great grappler, don't get me wrong. He's a very good striker as well. My initial thoughts were like, I really like Luque in this spot. I'm going to jam money at Luque. It seems like the market's starting to come back a little bit, and people are fancying themselves the underdog in Geoff Neal. I'll wait until weigh-ins and see how they look like standing next to each other, because I really don't think that this line's moving too much at this point. Luque will be the pick for me. He just has more options, more ways to win this fight. Neal's got to win a stand-up affair. Maybe he clips him, but Luque's been historically quite durable. I think Luque wins. I think he wins probably around 65-70% clips. So it's like right in the wheelhouse of a play here for me. But I'll wait for the week to go along. Maybe I even get a better price. But Luque for me. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to take Luque as well. I wouldn't mind the dog shot on Geoff Neal simply because he's got the durability. And I think if there's going to be a prolonged striking battle, he'll have his opportunities to land. But I got to go with the more straight up thought process of he's just going to outwork him more often than not, right? Like you said, 65-70% of the time if need be. But I think he's going to have the volume. Luque is very fast. Problem is that he's super hittable, and you see in a lot of these spots, he either gets rocked or he gets, hurt or he's stunned, and he's able to come back. He's fought in low-level guys like Mike Perry and Bryan Barberena, and of course, they've all been able to get in that actual, classic scrap with him and hurt him at times. But he's got that classic Henry Hoof kickboxing, works the legs good, works the body good, nasty hook, doesn't move his head as much as I'd like him to, but for the most part, it's like he's very clean. I know what you're saying with the grappling advantage, but he's more of a counter grappler. He can snack you up with the Darce choke, as you saw in the Tyron Woodley fight. He can do the same thing. Michael Chiesa, high-level grappler. Chiesa had him in a ton of bad spots, but he overcomes them and he comes back. Bilal Muhammad writes the blueprint on how to defeat this guy. You can smother him up against the cage. You can take him down. He is strong, but his get-up game's not that good. Like his submission game's good, but I mean, you can't be constantly throwing up submissions off your back, especially as you're moving up the rankings, right? So Bilal snuffs everything out. 5 takedown attempts. That's the way to beat him. Geoff Neal's not going to do that. Geoff Neal's going to stand in front of him and exchange. And he does have the power to knock him out. And he's a gritty enough, good enough striker. When I say gritty enough, I lied about that. I don't think he's gritty enough. I think you need a guy that's going to just bite down on his gum piece and go after him. And the fight that showed me that wasn't going to be the case was Stephen Thompson. I was on Wonderboy that night. A lot of people are on Neal. Why? Thompson had been knocked out by Anthony Pettis. His chin's not perceived as very good at this point. And Geoff Neal at the time is on a huge run. He's dicing fools. He knocked out Mike Perry in the first round, which pretty much nobody does. And there was a lot of heat behind him, right? The fight happens, and he looked like Action Man against Jack Hermanson. Like, he just follows him the entire time. And in 3, 4, and 5, he's congratulating Stephen Thompson on, congratulations on beating me. And, it was mentally checked out. And I know we just interviewed Max Rohskopf, and he kind of gave you that mentality of mentally checking out. Maybe that's the case. But since then, he loses a fight to Neil Magny, in which he gets outstruck and outgrappled, right? Didn't look like he was particularly interested. And then his last fight against Santiago Ponzinibbio, that's a razor-close split decision. He got outstruck in the first 2 rounds, first round and second round, and obviously combined. But there's an argument that he's down 2-0, wins the third. There's an argument he won the first round. I can see that too. But if he loses that, which he very easily could have, this is a 3-fight losing streak from him. And he's looked unmotivated in all of them. The volume's not there. He doesn't seemingly care. I know he's only 31. He's not shot. He's not over the hill. It just seems like here's a guy that had a lot of early success. Guys probably told him you're the best. Guys probably told him you're going to be a title. He was very close to title contention. Gets a fight with Wonderboy Thompson, lays an egg. Gets a gatekeeper against Neil Magny, lays a second egg. gets a guy that's considered by many to be perhaps a little over the hill in Santiago Ponzinibbio, and doesn't run away with it. So, like, I think Luque is just a little too sharp. He's got a little too much volume. He's got excellent footwork. He does get hit a little much for my liking.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, Geoff Neal hasn't knocked anybody out since Mike Perry, and that was 3 years ago. So I got to go with Luque as well. I would think Luque by decision, because I do think Geoff Neal's super durable. So maybe if you're trying to get greasy and improve a better price tag on the 165, maybe that's what you would go with, is the Luque by decision.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. All right, we got Zach Pauga taking on Mohammed Usman in the tough heavyweight finals. Zach Pauga, minus 250 favorite. Usman could be had for plus 210. Watched Pauga a little bit, obviously through his Cage Warrior days. He looks pretty mobile on his feet. He's a former football player, really good athlete. You know, don't let his body kind of fool you on that. And then watch his most recent fight on the Ultimate Fighter. He's like throwing spin and stuff. Like, this is a guy who's obviously making some serious improvements. Usman, obviously the brother of Kamaru Usman, but watching some of his tape, you know, not all brothers are made equal. Let's just say it that way. This is he does not look like, Kamaru is amazing, and Mohammed getting just to this level is good on him. I don't really love, laying minus 250 on debuting UFC heavyweights, big boys in there, but Mohammed Usman doesn't seem to have any sort of like crazy power that I've seen on tape. I don't really think his wrestling is anything all that special. I think Zach Pauga's probably still the value side at minus 250. Am I going to get there from a betting perspective? Maybe not, but Pauga is clearly the pick for me. What about you?
Yeah, I got to agree with Zach Pauga being the pick. It's a little bit strange, though, because here's a guy that's 34 years old, so I don't know that I would really call him a prospect. Like, it's a little bit. One's 34, one's 33. Like, neither guy is going to make waves in the UFC.
In the heavyweight division, you can probably fight for another, 5-6 years, though, in fairness.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And what he's actually done for himself here is he's undefeated as an amateur, turns pro, right? Goes undefeated as a pro, all at 205 pounds. Dude's a 205. And he went to heavyweight because ain't nobody there, and he wanted to get on the Ultimate Fighter. But he looked really good on the Ultimate Fighter. This Nye Bartling fight, he never gets touched once. And then there's Jordan Heaterman, same thing. I mean, he goes out there, he knocks him out. He took no damage in any of his fights, looked very clean. And you could have argued that those are maybe some of the better guys in the house, although it was a super weak season, obviously. I would just say Zach Pauga obviously was a standout. Now he's got an undefeated pro record to go along with his undefeated amateur record. I think he moves back down to 205 after this, which you see with Ultimate Fighter champions all the time. But yeah, he just needs to get through this one more against Mohammed Usman. And I think that, yeah, he'll be better suited for 205. But with Mohammed Usman, it's been like a case of fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And I've already learned my lessons. So as you know, because this was my jam, especially back then, but Tachi Palace fights used to run free on Sherdog. You watch the shit free on Sherdog on Thursday nights. And they'd always have these greasy SoCal versus NorCal bangers. Guys that would go on and fight in the WEC. Guys that would go on and fight at a low level. But a lot of guys that came out of California ended up having a stop at Tachi. So I was well aware of Mohammed Usman. He won his 3 fights all in the first round. Low level competition, but he was Kamaru's brother. He could wrestle. He had played football. He's a great athlete. He's actually younger than Kamaru Usman. So he had a bright future. And he fights Dante Mays. Ironic, because Dante Mays just bent me over a barrel. But as you can see how bad Dante Mays is. Why did I do that to myself? As you can see how bad Dante Mays is, Mohammed Usman looked terrible in that fight. That was your first red flag that was like, maybe this guy isn't that good. Beyond that, he loses to Brandon Sales. Brandon Sales was 41 years old, had a 4-1 or 5-1 pro record, hadn't fought anybody, and I think fought one more time after that loss, never fought again, right? From a low-level regional scene, and he has an okay first round, but not great. I'd still score for Sales. And the second round just absolutely quits. And I'm not going to say quits, but once he gasses out, it's a bad look for him, and then he gets caught with the rear naked choke. So there's no way that this guy goes from losing that fight to a 41-year-old mid-card regional scene journeyman to the Ultimate Fighter if his last name is not Usman. But it is, so he gets in. And this Mitchell Sipe, he's actually not terrible, so that's a decent enough win. But The fight itself, not great. But this Eduardo Perez fight, rewatching it back a couple times, I didn't score it for him. I didn't think he won. I think the UFC, not that they have anything to do with it, but the commission, maybe gifted it to him. And does that have anything to do with Kamaru Usman being his brother? Does that have anything to do with Kamaru Usman coming and visiting the guys in the Apex and talking to everybody? And I don't know. I'd hate to think so. But this guy hasn't earned it the same way. So Zach Pauga, he looked good in his fights. He's looked good prior to coming to this stage in his career. And at 34, I'd say he's not one of these rookies that's going to get caught with his pants down. He's probably a more refined version of a fighter at this stage. And of course, like you said, played football, good athlete. Mohammed Usman, meanwhile, he's looked terrible in both of his losses. And he looks ripe for the picking. Did not look good against Eduardo Perez. Someone's going to expose this guy. Maybe it's an undersized 205 for sure, but I think it's going to happen. And the last thing is that when you are a guy that's not really a heavyweight, but you're a 205er, you can get away with it at heavyweight because you're so much faster than these guys. And I think that's going to be a big thing here. I think he's going to be way faster, better output, move forward, stuff the takedowns, and just put a grind on him until he otherwise quits, or you can pick up the W by decision.
All right, Julianna Miller takes on Brogan Walker in the flyweight tough finals. Julianna Miller, -115. Brogan Walker, +100. It's kind of almost like striker versus grappler here. Julianna Miller trains at Team Hurricane Awesome in San Diego. She's only 2-1 in her career. On The Ultimate Fighter, it's like she's really super, super aggressive. She crashes forward. Stand-up game, definitely a work in progress. She's put a lot of time in at grappling tournaments and stuff like that. But she's definitely aggressive on the feet. I don't mind her body lock to trip takedowns. She can get the takedowns there. She did it in her last fight on to get into the finals here. And watched Brogan Walker versus Laura Gallardo on The Ultimate Fighter, and she definitely stuffed all of Gallardo's takedowns and stuff. But and there was one judge that had it 30-27, but that was a dogfight. It was very, very. It was much closer than the scorecards would indicate. Both girls were landing shots. I'm leaning towards the younger, less experienced Miller in this spot. I think she can just push a pace that potentially Brogan Walker, though she has all the experience, won't be able to keep up with. And if Miller is able to get it to the ground, I favor her grappling. So Julianna Miller for me. What about you?
All right, Paul. Joanne Jacek, Aspen Ladd, JJ Aldrich. What do these girls got in common?
They're all your baby?
Yeah, Julianna Miller, my baby. Man, I like this girl. I like this girl a lot. Not just because of her looks, but because of her style. She is a grinder, junkyard dog. I would prefer if she would try to get the body lock takedowns and get to the ground because she's got very good flexibility, funky jiu-jitsu, able to snack up some very good submissions, and is a high-level grappler. But it's her willingness to just come forward and scrap with you the entire time. Good cardio. She first came on my radar when she fought her Invicta. Well, obviously, Fight Network bought Invicta, right? So very familiar with the roster, but against Kendall Hollowell, damn, this girl wants to scrap. She's got that mentality that she wants to be a fighter. Lose to Clara Guthrie, but she's young, work in progress. Similar to a Vanessa Demopoulos, they have very good jiu-jitsu, but the striking isn't quite there yet, and the wrestling isn't quite there yet. They've also got quirky styles. They're not really quite comfortable with how they're going to put it all together. Miller, however, seems to be a better striker. She's front heavy, comes at you. She's got good grappling. I liked how she looked in the show. I thought she posed a lot of problems. Her grappling obviously looks good. And it's just that tenacity. She's still young. She's still developing. She's still getting better. There's a lot for the UFC to work with here. I think she goes and she gets the job done. Brogan Walker, it's no disrespect to her. She's fought a good level of competition. At 33 years old, this is the best version of her you're probably going to get. But again, more of a striker. And more of a striker that tends to tire out the longer fights go. She got notable wins and notable losses. A win over Miranda Maverick, obviously that aged quite well. But the Pearl Gonzalez loss and the Aaron Blanchfield loss, they're both fights where you could noticeably see the longer that they start to stretch and go, the more that she's going to start to fatigue and tire out. And I honestly feel like Julianna Miller is going to be able to push a much heavier pace and eventually break her down. Also, if you go back to Brogan Walker's fight with Hannah Guy on The Ultimate Fighter, in the second round, she does give up her back and ends up in a pretty bad position. And again, this is a spot that Miller's going to thrive in. I mean, she's got excellent jiu-jitsu, has a win over Beatrice Mesquite, who's an ADCC competitor, a former Abu Dhabi Pro circuit champion, high-level BJJ. It's an escape time win, whatever. can grapple at a high level. If you give her that opportunity, she'll capitalize on it. So I think she's got a couple paths to victory here. If she chooses to try to pursue takedowns and grapple, I think that is a way to tire her out and eventually take the back, fish for a submission, do what you have to do. You could win that way. If she decides to just go out there and go BJ Penn, just scrap mentality time, and throws down, she'll get hit a lot more. It'll be a greasy, dicey MMA fight, women's MMA fight that stretches a little bit longer. But I still think Brogan Walker will start to tire. And when she starts to tire, Julianna Miller will take over. So in both scenarios, I think she gets the W. For that reason, I'm going to have to back my baby.
Julianna Miller added to my card this week. All right. Giddy up on that. All right, moving on down. We got Serghei Spivac taking on Augusto Sakai. Serghei Spivac, a minus 260 favorite. Sakai can be had for plus 220. Who you got here, buddy?
Yeah, this one I would love to take the underdog shot. Simply kind of, well, I mean, it goes back to Dante Mays last week. It goes back to a whole lot of scenarios that you and I have discussed recently. But, like, they would be considered lower level heavyweights, and I just think you got to kind of expect the unexpected. But as I say that, I really go with that kind of logic. I mostly go with what my gut instinct is. And my gut instinct is Serghei Spivac's going to eventually take him down. When he takes him down, he's going to put a mauling on him. Augusto Sakai is one of these guys that has big power. For a guy that weighs 265 pounds, he moves quite well, has some decent footwork. And him at his best is him coming forward and letting his hands go. And, of course, he's got decent success here and there. But it goes back to that Overeem fight. Yes, it was in the 5th round, but as soon as he tired, Overeem was taking him down with some, like, funky takedowns, man. Like, basically just pulling him to the ground, getting on top of him, and absolutely thrashed him, especially that 4th round into the 5th, eventually stopped him. After that, he's been fighting like a different guy. Like, he didn't want to gas out. Like, he gassed, and then Overeem exposed him. And then the Yarazina Rosenstruck fight, he doesn't let his hands go. He stares at him. Not a good fight. He gets knocked out in the 1st round. The Tai Tuivasa fight, I didn't think he per se had a terrible 1st round, but rewatch it, dude. He does not let his hands go. He's just sitting there waiting for something to happen. And unfortunately, early in the 2nd, Ty makes it happen and knocks him out. So now that he's gun shy and worried about his cardio, like, I don't know what to expect. Him at his best, he has a striking advantage over Serghei Spivac. Spivac's got a lazy jab. He can counter him. He can move around him. And he's got 15-minute cardio if need be, so he could settle into a kickboxing match. I'm more so worried that if he's going to tire out and not exert himself, not enough output. And second of all, seeing how easily Overeem did take him down and smash him, well, Rosenstruck is a striker, right? And Tai Tuivasa is a striker. Those guys didn't bother taking him down, but it's very live that Serghei Spivac just goes out there, sets up the jab for a little bit, gets him to overextend on something, takes him down. And if he does take him down, he probably puts a beating on him. So got to go with Serghei Spivac, who seemingly is just making improvements fight to fight. He's still only 27 years old. He's basically a baby in the heavyweight division. And, of course, the guy's actually on a decent enough stretch considering he's won 4 of his last 5 fights, only lost to Tom Aspinall. So, yeah, he's improving. I believe he's also full-time in Las Vegas now. And I think at some point he's able to either tire him out or get him to the ground and make things happen. So I want to take the underdog shot because it's middling heavyweights. But my gut and my brain keep circling back to Serghei Spivac wins this fight.
I think it's pretty clear dog or pass at the price that's listed right now. I want to wait for weigh-ins because, like, Augusto Sakai, like, not that I'm the type of guy who should be able to, like, you know, mock anybody's body type by any stretch of the imagination, but, like, he's got like t-shirt in the pool kind of vibes. I see on his Instagram creeping around his Instagram that, like, you know, it looks like he's putting in a lot of cardio training. Obviously, he needs to put in some serious sprawl training. But, like, Serghei Spivac, he has made tons of improvements. But let's not forget, the guy got knocked out in the 1st round by Walt Harris. Tom Aspinall is a
Walt
stud.
Harris cracks.
Yeah, and Sakai was cracking fools as well. Up until this most recent losing streak, like,
yeah, all right,
knocked out Marcin Tybura in the 1st round. I mean, he did go to decision against Chinny Arlovsky, but, you know, we can throw that out of the way. Knocked out Chase Sherman. I just mean at plus 220. I think it's a heavyweight. Serghei Spivac, not a great stand-up technician. He has to get the takedowns. He has to get them early. I think it's pretty clear dog or pass, but I want to wait for weigh and see if things are tightened up a little bit. Remember when, like, Romanov didn't have exactly the greatest body, and then he came in at those. Sometimes, like, heavyweights, everyone's like, oh, it doesn't really matter. It's just like, well, if they've made, like, a major structural change to their body, it may. And, I mean, it's been coming up on 8 months basically since the Tuivasa fight. So it's a lot of time for Sakai. Maybe we'll see him, tighten it up just a little bit. But yeah, Sakai will be my pick. Sakai by knockout. They're a little bit slow on the props this week for this fight. But I see Sakai inside the distance at plus 350. So it's like if I can get like a plus 500 Sakai by knockout, I may just have to drop a little sprink on it, my friend. Moving on down, we got Ariane Lipski taking on Catch a Beating. Lipski minus 170, plus 145 for Priscila Cachoeira. You know I already bet Catch a Beating. Plus 150. She's already on the card. That's really all I have to say about it. I just think, Ariane Lipski, probably a little bit more talented, but Catch a Beating is going to go in there and fight for my money. Is it going to look pretty early? You may have the argument of, why don't you just make sure, you're probably going to get a better odds after round one. And I totally agree with that. But like Lipski has a bit of a tendency of, not showing up or flaming out after starting out nicely. Priscila Cachoeira is as tough as nails. She's going to be fighting from, opening bell to closing bell, whether her face is falling off. These are the type of fighters that I bet on. Hence why I've been doing pretty horribly for the last 3 or 4 months. But yeah, Catch a Beating on the card. Couldn't let plus money against Lipski pass me by. So I got plus 150 out on the market there. There's plus 145. There's plus 155 actually out there right now as well. So it's all right around that ballpark. I think it's probably just a little bit more close to 50-50. What's your take here? You're going to be picking Lipski, I know, but what's your take?
Yeah. No, I could be talking to the Augusto Sakai fight, of course. Spivac got outstruck by your boy Oleksiejczuk standing for a round. So I could see the path to victory for Sakai. Cachoeira, I don't know. Maybe she storms forward and fights for your dollar, makes it entertaining, but there's not enough there for me. She's more of a punching bag more than anything. And yeah, I didn't think she beat Ji-Yeon Kim. She got outstruck by a pretty wide margin. Even in the third round, she got outstruck by a very wide margin and then landed a series of elbows near the end of it that persuaded the judges. So it was cool that she picked up a win because she fought her heart out. But at the same time, this is somebody that kind of struggles when she's not fighting the Gina Mazzanis or the Shayna Dobsons of the world. So, she's been very good to you. You've been able to cash dog tickets on her, and kudos to you for that, but at some point she's going to run into something. Lipski, meanwhile, was definitely a career bust. If I was to kind of try to give her a pass, though, is she's still only 20 years old. She's still young. She still could conceivably make some improvements to her game. They set her up with a series of grapplers, and of course she's not able to grab at that level. Gets taken down by Antonia Shevchenko, who I don't even know if you can call a grappler, but the fact that you got taken down and beat up in that one, not a good look. Montana De La Rosa takes her down twice, puts her away, not a good look. But then she leaves, comes down to Las Vegas, switches camps, says, you know what, I need to do something different. I've been working with the same coaches for so long. I need to change things up. And I thought she looked in really good shape in the Mandy Baum fight. Her striking looked back to the way it was back in the KSW days. Tight, technical, heavy, good clinch, good Muay Thai clinch. Rocked Mandy Baum a couple times. Basically picked her apart over the course of 15 minutes. And it looked like for still a young fighter, this was the confidence boost she needed. And if they're going to give her more strikers, maybe she can thrive against strikers. Against people that are going to take her down? No, sir. We've seen that already.
Mandy Bum got dog walked by Vicky Leon's. Give me a break, pal.
Yeah, Mandy Baum's no good. Absolutely, I hear you. But with Priscila Cachoeira, she's scored effectively one takedown in her entire UFC tenure, and that was in her last fight against Ji-Yeon Kim, and she got 27 seconds of top control out of that one takedown. So she's not a wrestler. She doesn't have the jiu-jitsu to plant her down. She's just going to have to get in her face and slug the entire time. Could she make this a super ugly fight where she just roughs her up? Like every time she grabs the tie clinch, she just gets to the dirty boxing and roughs her body up and roughs her head up, and there's blood and the judges like it, and it's a small little apex. Could she make it that classic scrap? Yeah, maybe. But again, looking at the people that she's fought, it's kind of low level, Paul. And I know I'm not saying Lipski's a world beater by any stretch. I just mean I'm not completely writing her off quite yet. Cachoeira needs people who are written off. Even Ji-Yeon Kim, which is a career best win for her, and it was a greasy robbery. G and Kim comes out and pitches a nag against Jocelyn Edwards or next time.
Oh, I'm
right?
sorry.
They're all operating
Lipski,
at a very
Lipski has wins over superstars Luana Carolina, Isabella DePadua, and Mandy Baum. Yeah, big time. Real prospect here. She's been a flame out
she went the
since
distance.
she came
went
from
the distance
KSW,
with Joanne
Cody, and you know it.
back in. Say it again. She's been a bust.
She's been a complete bust.
Is that what you believe? Okay.
100% bust.
I still think she's young. I still think she could turn it around. Let's do a shoey bet because you seem very confident in it. And I would say that your girl Catch a Beating is about to go out there and catch a beating.
All right, let's go, Cab. Let's do a shoey bet on it. Because I looked down the rest of
Women's
this card,
MMA, baby,
and we're not.
let's go.
We already agreed on Julianna Miller, so it's like we're not going to end up having one on that. Yeah, this is the spot. Putting my money behind Catch a Beating. God have mercy on my soul. Pat.
Is Lipski
hot?
As attractive as she kind of looks in this picture?
She's a good-looking girl.
Fucking Cody's gonna win this for sure.
Do you think?
The UFC.
I think
the
things
UFC
are rigged
knows
all the time.
it.
If it was me, I'd rig it for her.
Okay,
one of these girls
when
when she gets nicked up, she's just gonna be like Randy Marsh, I didn't hear no bell, and keep barging forward. The other one's going to be like, I have a potential Instagram model career after this that I should probably, keep everything in check.
No, what I'm saying is the UFC is like, wait a second, this chick's a mega babe, and we can promote her properly, then we can move her up. She's still only 28, she's still getting better. And honestly, Paul doesn't want to admit it, but if you look at her record before she came to the UFC, she actually beat some girls that went on to bigger and better things. Dinah Belbita, Miranda Moraes, Silvana Gomez Juarez, right? These girls all made it to the big show. So she had legit wins. They book her versus Joanne Calderwood, a perennial top contender in the division, someone who people want to see get a title fight. She's a minus 245 favorite over Joanne Calderwood, is how much people believed in her. She was a bust. Paul's right. They book her versus Molly McCann, who's currently top 10 in the division and, getting paid, making money, going out there and celebrate. She's a minus 275 favorite over Molly McCann. That's how much, bookmakers, the UFC believed in her. And then, it was a tough way to go out. She gets exposed in the grappling. I get it. They realize she's marketable. They realize she's pretty. They're going to give her the fights to get her back on track.
Well,
Mandy
they messed
Baum
up Cody.
is the perfect opponent. Priscila Cachoeira, second perfect opponent.
Catch a
And
dub.
you know who it'll be after this? Maria Agapova, because that would be the third best opponent. And you watch. They're going to build her back up whether she's good or not.
All right, we got a shoey bet on the way.
Shoey bet? Yeah, well, it just seems like you want to pick up chicks at the local GNC, and Cody's hanging out near the cardio equipment. I know where I would be.
Hey, Pat Mayo, I'm coming with you to 5-star Michelin restaurants and going to fancy hotels.
Yeah.
Paul and Priscila Cachoeira is sleeping in the back of his hatchback.
It's
the national park, pal.
It'll put hair on your chest. She probably has hair on her chest as well. But that's
I have none.
What's that? Yeah,
Pat
has no hair on his chest. I mean, we're not all the same.
I live with the guy.
We're not all the same. I'm just looking at Prize Picks to see if there's anything interesting here. I mean, I think so far the Hill number is kind of our spot.
No, Spivac over 1.5 takedowns. I'm playing that for sure after hearing
That's
Cody
pretty
talk.
good. That's actually probably pretty good. Interesting.
I will give you this, Paul. If Priscila Cachoeira does
he gets
win, I want to see
knocked
the UFC do her versus Lauren Murphy.
Oh, that's you just being mean. You're just being mean. All right, we got Michael.
That would be marketing at its finest. Go ahead.
We got Michael Oleksiejczuk taking on Sam Alvey, who's on a 37-fight losing streak. Somehow still has a job. It's amazing. Obviously, there's always memes out there. Smiling Sam knows where the bodies are buried. I mean, this apparently, win or lose, will be his last fight. They're fighting at middleweight. This is a division that I think Oleksiejczuk, he's always been incredibly undersized at 205 pounds. Middleweight seems like a much better spot for him to put in his time. Sam, I'm kind of interested because he's been floating between the two weight classes. 185 pounds has been historically a pretty tough cut for him. I mean, Oleksiejczuk, skill for skill and speed and all of that, should absolutely dog walk him. But I am worried. Like, I mean, he's minus 700. Sam Alvey, historically quite durable. 20 pounds from 205 pounds down to 185 is a significant cut. It's the most significant cut in MMA. And I wouldn't really get involved in this fight whatsoever until you see Oleksiejczuk step on the scales, because minus 700, I mean, what's obviously at minus 700 you're fishing for props at that point. And Oleksiejczuk by decision plus 175, Oleksiejczuk inside the distance minus 140. I don't know what to do with this fight. I just know that, like, I don't really want to bet Sam Alvey on a 69 fight losing streak against literally anybody at this point. But minus 700 is too wide for me. I'm sure Oleksiejczuk will be top ticket on your parlays.
Yeah, if not top ticket, second ticket, because realistically, if you're putting him with one other person at minus 700, he's really not giving you that much value. And second ticket, just because, yeah, I got to see the cut as well. I mean, he doesn't look like the biggest 205er, but it looks like he's at times struggled to make 205.
And so he's gassed
when you
late.
See him, he always gasses late, right? He's a notorious gasser. The 20-pound weight cut, you hit it, man. It's basically two weight classes in a lot of other divisions. Like, there's a big separation. He was never one of these guys that was, like, ripped up in the sense that it wasn't like he has some great strength and conditioning program. So it's almost as if he just lost his last fight being the smaller guy and got sick of it and was like, I got to go down a weight class. But who knows if he's doing it the right way? And all of those things would be a concern to me. I think he could fight Sam Alvey at 205 and completely kill him and look every good as minus 700. But at 185, he's either going to look tremendous or there's going to be something left to be desired. Sam Alvey, though, is in a very, very strange spot because when he fought Nogueira as 2018, it was the last fight of his deal. And because he was coming off a win over John Vellante and he fought Nogueira, they signed him to a 4-fight deal. So he loses to Jimmy Crute, Klidson Abreu, Ryan Spann. Then he gets Da Eung Jung. So that's the last fight on his deal. And it's a draw, right? And like 95% of people thought Sam Alvey won that fight. So the UFC's like, oh, dude, you probably got robbed tonight, and that was the last fight on your deal. So you know what? We're going to give you another 4-fight deal because that's what they signed these guys for, 4-fight deals. And this is, of course, the last fight on the deal. But they called him up, and they were like, listen, you've been such a good guy over the years. You've never turned down fights. You've always showed up. You always made weight. Super professional. We're going to allow you to fight your contract out. But they allowed Alexis Davis to fight her contract out recently as well. She won, and they released her, right? So it's kind of like you're at the end of the road, Sam Alvey. You can go fight elsewhere if you want, but like a good little handshake. But they're doing him no favors with like in terms of a good matchup on his way out. What I will admit is that Da Eung Jung fight, he went on record being like, this is the last fight of my deal, and I know I'm going to get cut if I lose this. So he was like YOLO mode for the first 2 rounds, and he fought quite well. Lost the third, I thought, but fought quite well. This is going to be YOLO mode. He knows it's the last fight. He knows no matter what, even if I ice this guy in the first round or I lose in the first round, that's it. So why wouldn't he go for it? And that in itself makes him a dangerous man. But the reason why I can't get behind him, even though he's got that dangerous man mentality, is you remember Sam Alvey as good as anybody, right? Because you've seen him right from the start. Dude had some durability. You could hit him in the face with a frying pan and he would just take it. That was part of his game. He has no output. He's got some decent power in his hands.
He hopes that you run into his left hook. Like that's
and he's got underrated takedown defense and just like a hell of a chin on the guy, right? And he's been able to get by largely based on that. But then you saw all of a sudden, Derek Brunson knocks him out, and then Rodrigo Nogueira had knocked him out, and then all of a sudden Julian Marquez.
Julian Marquez knocked him down. Brendan Allen knocked him down. That durability is disappearing for sure.
Yeah, and I know he argues with the refs now, and he says, I'm fine. But the optics of you falling face forward onto the canvas and having a guy jump on you, smack you 2 times, they're going to stop you. He's a little bit older. He's been stopped in like, I don't know, 4 of his last 7 fights or something, and that's very unusual for Sam Alvey. He's got 6 kids. He's married to the girl that won like season 4 of America's Next Top Model. I don't think she's very hot, but still, apparently you don't got to be a model. But yeah, I mean, he's like, life's good for Sam Alvey. You don't got to feel bad for him. Unfortunately, they're throwing him into a guy with a career in the division versus a guy that's getting a pat on the back on the way out. So I got to wait for weigh-ins, of course, but I would say Lord Michael, I don't know why I was calling Prince Michael. Lord Michael gets the job done, and Oleksiejczuk just either clips him with something early, probably something early. I would say the under 1.5, and then Oleksiejczuk just gets after him. But maybe betting the total on the under 1.5 might not be a terrible idea either, because if Alvey's durability is gone, this dude is going to touch him up. It's what he does. He comes at you hard. Even at 85, he's not going to pace himself. He likes to put pressure, and he likes to land big strikes. So if Alvey's if his durability is gone, and I kind of think it is, he's going to get put away early, within 1.5. At the same time, if Lord Michael doesn't get him out of there early, and he charges forward like he always does, and Sammy goes YOLO mode and starts swinging his hands and letting that power go, maybe, right? But with Alvey, like, the power it hasn't been there for a while. What was his last knockout win?
Prachnio.
His last knockout win was
in 2018.
Okay.
And Prachnio
ran face first.
Prachnio had to change his game after that, because Prachnio was like hands down, just running forward, and literally got knocked down twice, ran right into the left hook. It was he did exactly what you don't do against Sam Alvey. Is run right into his punches.
That was 4 years ago. His only knockout win before that is King Kevin Casey, who people call Max Rohskopf a quitter. Go watch Kevin Casey. He's got 2 wins in the last 6 years by KO, both over layup guys meant there to get the KO. So if the power is not there, the puncher's chance is reduced. And if you don't get, Oleksiejczuk off you early, he's going to start to rack up some shots that otherwise Sam Alvey normally could take. But at this point, he's compromised.
I'm cheering.
Sure, wait for the weigh-ins. But I don't think it's enough for us to pick Sam Alvey.
I'll be cheering for Sam Alvey. I would love to see him, because he used to have all these crazy post-fight, speeches and stuff like that. A lot of people found him really uncomfortable, almost like sideshow, carnival type of vibe to it.
Jacob Volkman.
Yeah, but it's his last. I mean, I guess if he's going to retire, they'll probably give him the mic regardless, unless he's convulsing on the canvas. And in fairness to Sam punched way out of his weight class on that marriage. So, whether Cody's impressed with it or not, I think Sam did quite well for himself. Pat, looks like you have something to say.
Cody, did you say under 1.5 rounds?
Yeah, I would be looking at the under. I think Alvey's
plus 140.
Yeah. This will be a violent fight, especially because Oleksiejczuk realizes I'm in a new weight class. They're giving me Sam Alvey, he's 0-7-1 in his last 8 fights. Whether or not he should have won a couple fights here and there, he's 0-7-1. For Oleksiejczuk, you don't come out here and fight this guy to a competitive decision. You swarm him. And because he's been defeated in his last couple of fights by guys that have chosen to swarm him, I'm thinking that under 1.5 looks decent. Do it or die trying. Alvey counters him. Great. Okay. But as long as it's the under 1.5.
Fight doesn't go to decision if you want to play it safer at minus 170. Probably.
That's not bad either. Yeah, that's not bad either. Play it the safe route.
Under 10-minute fight time on PrizePicks?
I would say if you're taking the under 1.5, 10 minutes even better. If it makes it to the third, someone didn't, I don't know. Honestly, I don't see it going to the third. I think Alvey's going to go out trying to say, if I'm going to get cut regardless, why wouldn't you fight for that fight of the night? Why wouldn't you go out there and thrill the fans one more time? It's the Apex, I get it, but why wouldn't you just and then leave your gloves in the cage afterwards if you want?
5 strikes in a row. I mean, that's what he's been doing for a long time. But maybe this is the, this is his, get rich or die trying, and maybe he's gonna come out and actually go to war and try to get that, that one shining moment. If he wins this fight, though, I don't believe the retirement. I could see him signing another deal or something like that.
Not with the
UFC, but
I think this
I could see him in the PFL light heavyweight tournament next year. That would be very on brand.
I could see him winning $1 million in the PFL tournament.
To retire.
Sorry. I could see Sam Alvey winning $1 million in the PFL tournament, and people would say, "Man, you're crazy." Sean O'Connell won $1 million in the tournament. Lewis Taylor won $1 million. Emiliano Sordi won $1 million. Oh my God, my heart. Ooh.
It's possible.
He could win $1 million in the PFL tournament because it is soft.
I mean, even against Antonio Carlos Jr., if he can keep it up on the feet.
It's just expect the
He's got
unexpected
good defensive wrestling historically.
Yeah.
Sam Alvey, PFL champion. PFL light heavyweight. He wouldn't cut those extra 20 pounds to fight in the tournament. There's no way. Not when you have to fight that many times in a short period of time.
How about this? The rematch that nobody, and I mean nobody, ever asked for. Sam Alvey, Rashad Evans, Eagle FC. Sign me up, Paul.
Habib's probably already on the line if he heard this somewhere out there. Yeah. All right, we got Terrance McKinney taking on Erick Gonzalez. Minus 1,000 for Terrance McKinney, plus 600 for Erick Gonzalez. Erick Gonzalez, got knocked out by Jim Miller, set round 2. Is he all that impressive? No, but minus 1,000 for Terrance McKinney. Minus 400 for McKinney inside the distance. Guy is all action. He's a super, super, aggressive fighter. Love the kid. Think he's incredibly entertaining. But it's risky biz with he comes at you so fast. That's what we've seen from him is he just doesn't. He's not leaving anything in the tank. He either puts you away in those first 2.5 minutes, or he's ripe for the taking. So, I mean, they've made this line pretty much unbettable at this point. There's really not, unless you want to take shots on the over 1.5 is plus 195. If you think Erick Gonzalez could last, if 33% of the time Erick Gonzalez lasts 7.5 minutes. I mean, it's dicey. It probably loses. That would be my play if I were to play it. I think McKinney probably finishes him in round 1. I think that's already steamed to minus 250. McKinney wins, but there really isn't much of a way for me to attack it from a betting perspective. So I'll enjoy watching the fight, but it's a straight up pass. Pat.
So 4 minutes is the over-under Prize Picks.
Yeah, it's very low.
So do we go, maybe we should just make our own. Maybe I'll talk to Prize Picks. We'll do this, Cody. If you're in, do we get Cody with his baby from earlier in the card over-under Erick Gonzalez in this fight?
Over-under Erick Gonzalez in this fight?
Yeah, 4 minutes. Would you go over-under with your baby from earlier in this card?
Over 4.5 minutes?
Yeah. I see where he's going with this. Pat's mind is in the gutter. Cody's
would I last longer?
Man.
I'm going with Erick Gonzalez, by the way.
If you guys want to get head in the gutter and talk about tinfoil hat conspiracy theories about how Terrance McKinney loses at minus 1,000, word on the wire, he's been spending a little too much time in Las Vegas with Diana Belbita. So
I've seen them on Twitter. Exchanging of it. It looked like love was in the air from some of the. I don't follow either of them. No disrespect or anything, but you could see love was in the air. So good on them. None of my business. But yeah, everything about this fight is kind of insane. It's even on Prize Picks, 20.5 significant strikes. I could see him getting over. I could see him getting over 20.5 significant strikes in a minute. He comes at you just like a jackrabbit.
Well, here's my theory, right? So he's getting ready. He's getting in the cage. They're okay, fight's getting ready to start. Yeah. They're calling you out. Okay, ready. And then all of a sudden, his corner man's like, "Yo, your phone just went off. Diana Belbita says her parents aren't home." And then this dude fights like he needs to get out of there ASAP because he just goes through you in 2 minutes and then takes off. Parents aren't home, I'll be there in 5. What you doing right now, bae? Fight somebody in a steel cage, I'll be there in 5. And he just fights reckless. So, yeah, if you got a book that offers you the under half a round, you get some plus money on it. But, yeah, he's going to come at Gonzalez hard. And I don't think it's the best game plan. If you are going to run into something stupid, look at Contender Series last night, okay? Our guy Ross doesn't have a good first round, but he works his way back into it. In the second round, he's winning the second round, throwing combinations and stepping out. But he has this problem with just, I want to brawl in the pocket. Every time he did that, Brazilian dude would drop him. Every time he decided, I'm going to brawl in the pocket, he would get dropped. Second round, he's winning, and for no reason, he just steps in the pocket, doesn't defend himself, gets dropped, gets put away. Terrible way to lose. Good life lesson. The main event of that card, Chris Duncan. Chris Duncan's getting thrashed. But at some point, his opponent, Charlie, is like, I got this guy. So you get overzealous, and then you get countered. It's the sick part about MMA. Anything can happen. You're wearing 4-ounce gloves. So Terrance McKinney's super talented. Dude's a fantastic wrestler. He's a great athlete. Super explosive. Killer power. You've seen the chin on Drew Dober? I know you have. Mm-hmm. Who puts this guy down on his ass? I'll tell you what, Terrance McKinney, because he's got all those intangibles. But fighting like an idiot is only going to tire you out and leave you open to counters. So, yeah, I think it's going to catch up to him eventually. But, Eric Gonzalez is probably going to go down. Gonzalez had never been knocked out before. And then Jim Miller put him down. So, that's bad news, man. It really is. McKinney probably gets the jump on him. I don't think this thing goes past one round. But at minus 1,000, it adds nothing to my top ticket. And it's very volatile.
McKinney round one is minus 200. Now all the books haven't opened up. It's just like
that's not a good price either.
It's not. Maybe McKinney comes into this. He's like, I've been putting in all this, this cardio training with Belbita. It's like I want to see if I can, put on a 3-round fight in this spot. Probably not.
That could be, but Aaron Gonzalez, man, I don't know. Miller's knocking you out 14 seconds into the round. Nice left hand, really. But I would just think that. But now this is the last thing too. You're right. Maybe he has been working on his cardio endurance training, which we all believe he has. But beyond that is that he went hard out Drew Dober and then likely lost the fight because he gassed out trying. Yeah. So maybe he does come in with a new approach and says, "I'm just gonna wait and time my spots, and maybe you get to the second round." But I think he's a guy that is like, I'm going to wait. And then the second he would land a jab and he would see the guy make any type of movement, his brain would be like, kill, and he seeks and destroys. He's super entertaining. And I think he's got a bright prospect if he was able to reel it in, which maybe he will eventually with experience, but I don't know. Minus 1,000.
Big on his UFC debut, just smashing all of the unders, all of the alternate unders. But it's like now the books have caught up. They caught up pretty quick to it, and super quick to it this time. It's like,
well, yeah, they
under 1.5 minus 245. It's like, okay, not much meat on the bone there. It is what it is. The books are they adapt a lot faster these days than they did. I mean, yeah, it was like. Under 1.5 was plus money in his UFC debut, and under 2.5 was minus 145, lock, stock, and barrel. But now they know what McKinney's all about. All right, we got Bryan Battle taking on Takashi Sato, minus 270 Battle, plus 230 for Sato. Quickly, Cody, on Prize Picks, they got Battle takedown set at 2. I want to hear your breakdown, and I kind of thought that seemed a little bit high for Bryan Battle. Is he some sort of great wrestler? Because I was kind of puzzled by that one. So, yeah. Give me your breakdown.
Yeah, I was going to say no. Offensively, he's not a great wrestler. I would say the strongest aspect to his game likely is his jiu-jitsu. But, yeah, no, it's more like defensive jiu-jitsu, or maybe he can chop you up from standing. But, yeah, his offensive wrestling isn't good. The best I've maybe seen him utilize it is he has an amateur win over Impa Kasanganay. If you watch that fight, he wrestles a lot heavier against a guy that is an explosive athlete. But it's a long time ago. It's an amateur fight. Since then, maybe the Andre Petroski fight on The Ultimate Fighter, where he did not use his offensive wrestling, but he showed even at 185 pounds, he's strong, man. Petroski is ripped up. Dude wrestled collegiately. He's got good grappling, and he's a front runner. And I think Bryan Battle did a really excellent job of when he does get taken down, he gets back up to his feet, he digs for underhooks, and he keeps the fight standing. But offensively, it seems like he's relying on just using long-rangey kickboxing and racking up numbers. So I agree with you. I think the easiest path to victory versus Takashi Sato would be to pursue takedowns on the basis of, listen, all of his losses are either by submission or in his last fight with Gunnar Nelson, just completely got dominated on the mat. Mm-hmm. That would be the route you want to take.
These are good grapplers that he's getting taken down by, though, inside.
Excellent grapplers.
Bilal Muhammad only got 2 takedowns and got a submission in round 3 against him. It's like, Bilal Muhammad's awesome. We were talking about him against Vicente Luque. He took down Luque 5 times. Gunnar Nelson was able to get those takedowns, and I was on Gunnar Nelson by submission, so it was super, super tilting because Gunnar basically just held position because he's winning in the fight, never really pursued the submission. But Yeah, I just thought 2 takedowns seemed incredibly high for somebody who was taken down twice by Trishan Gore, was taken down twice by Gilbert Urbina, and was only got 1 takedown in each one of those matchups. So I thought, from what I could gather, Bryan Battle is more of a striker. So I thought 2 is extremely, extremely high. Like to lose this bet, or to lose that leg, I need him to get 3 takedowns. I just don't really see it.
Yeah, well, no, I think I agree with you. I just don't think wrestling is going to be his primary game plan, where you don't want to exhaust yourself trying to take him down. We don't know how the cut from 185 down to 170 would affect him in theory. He's going to be slower than he was at middleweight. Like, one of the things that would have made him serviceable at middleweight was he's got some decent pace and some decent speed, but at 170, it's taken off the table. Now, Takashi Sato is a murderous power puncher, and nobody stands with him. They all take him down. So you are playing with fire if you don't go out with the game plan of take this man down. True. But I think Bryan Battle just stays at the outside and chips away. Again, if you look at Takashi Sato, all of his wins in Pancras, Anton Radman, first round. Kenta Takagi, first round. Akira Muyurama, first round. Masayuki Hamashika, first round. This Matt Valley, second round. Ben Saunders in his UFC debut, second round. That win over Jason Witt, 48 seconds. And then the losses are all grapplers. Bilal Muhammad, one of the top 5 guy in the division. Miguel Beza. Beza doesn't use his jiu-jitsu much, but he's a black belt. He got some very good grappling. And then Gunnar Nelson. Couldn't submit him. High-level black belt. If he's going to just have a strict striking battle with Bryan Battle, he's going to have chances to land that big power. But Battle never been knocked out. And he just fought Trishan Gore, a guy that's got big power, and he really did an excellent job of mining his P's and Q's from the outside and just using his long-range kickboxing and putting up superior output. I think that's Sato's problem. Sato's a bang-or-bust kind of guy. He either knocks you out that big power or he doesn't throw his combinations together as much. So I think Bryan Battle uses the threat of the takedown to open up his striking, and I don't think he gets more than 2 takedowns. But I think he's just going to chop away ever so slightly towards a decision victory. But last but not least, like, maybe you want to wait until Friday and see the weigh-ins, just because Battle is coming down from 85 to 170. And he's not the biggest guy, but like, he is a big guy. And so that could affect him some, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. All right, we got Josh Quinlan taking on Jason Witt. Quinlan is a minus 235 favorite. Jason Witt can be had for plus 200. Quinlan won on Contender Series like last season. First round knockout. Super, super aggressive. Lots of power in his hands. And then he tested positive for steroids. So he's obviously had a bit of a layoff since then. Jason Witt, decent grappler. Trains with James Krause in Kansas City. Chin is a major issue. And I think that's how this fight's really going to play out. I would suggest, if you wanted to play with, you wanted to take the dog shot here, it's just like, I would probably just, maybe Witt gets an early takedown and you don't really get the opportunity, but I would wait to make sure that he doesn't die first in the first little bit. If anything that we've seen from Quinlan from his fights is that this guy comes to finish early, and that has always been a recipe for disaster for Jason Witt. I like Josh Quinlan. I like Josh Quinlan to win by knockout. What about you?
Yeah, I'm thinking Bruce Buffer's got a good shot in this one. I think Bruce Buffer could definitely go out and probably get the first round KO. Is when he does that thing where he announces Jason Witt, and he's got that little cue card, right? And the cue card sends a big old gust of wind, because you've seen the guy, he whips his arm. And that gust of wind, when he's looking at Witt, and he does that could put him out, dude. I seen Les put the guy out, and I'm thinking maybe if Buffer, if it was one of those big cards and he did the 360 Buffer spin, foregone conclusion. Get the stretcher ready. This man's going to the hospital. But even just like that quick flick from Buff, I think might be enough to put Jason Witt. If for whatever reason he opts not to do it and the fight actually does start, then yeah, I think Quinlan catches him at some point. Witt can grapple. Big's big, husky, good wrestler, good top game, okay jiu-jitsu. His problem is that, 15 minutes is a long-ass time, man, and these guys are going to work their way back up. Josh Quinlan looks like he's got a good get-up game. He's got good cardio, and he's got big striking. When he was on the Contender Series, of course, 47-second knockout, looks good. He's got the power, test positive for steroids. I like my guys on steroids. I'll tell you why. Because if you bet a guy and then 2 months later he gets suspended and doesn't fight for 2 years and they overturn it to no contest, your book does not care. That is a cashed ticket. So what do I care? John Quinlan wants to get on the sauce, and get in there and do the damn thing, I'm all for it. But all jokes aside, literally, he was pretty decent enough amateur, 6-0. I think he shows 5 of those 6 wins coming inside the distance. And as a pro, it's been much of the same. He's been racking up solid victories. His amateur career, he was 6-0, but first round knockout, 58-second knockout, 19-second knockout, minute 39 into the second. Turns pro, 32-second knockout, minute 29 to the second. And then what you see in this Joe Borshig fight, 2 fights back, LFA 97, is that cardio looks good. Again, he's somebody that can scramble decent. He looks strong. He looks physical. I actually don't even mind his takedown defense. It's low-level guys, so it's hard to give him a good read, but he looks like he can counter wrestle. All he's got to do is stuff a couple takedowns and touch him up a few times, and it's over. Even if he does get taken down, survive long enough to get back up at some point. Maybe it's the second round, maybe it's the third round. Hopefully you don't go that late. But at some point, he's going to connect. And when he does, I think he takes him out. So the price seems wide, but
it's like plus 160 for round 1, which is like no fun whatsoever. Here's my angle on it. Prize picks. Yeah. Jason Witt under 2.5 takedowns. Could he get there? Of course he could get there. But if he finishes them pretty quickly, I don't hate that.
It's on the card.
Boom. It's Quad P approved. So I feel pretty good about that. A lot of the Quinlan knockout props, it's like, everybody's kind of thinking the exact same thing. The real question, Cody, is like, I don't know if you caught, you're not really on Twitter as much anymore, but Krause was on Helwani's show, and like his interview basically turned into like a 15-minute commercial for James Krause, who is, for Pat and anybody who is the coach of Witt and a whole bunch of other fighters. And he has like a Discord, and he's like selling picks in his Discord, and it was basically him talking about like how great he is at gambling and all of that. If he doesn't have Witt on his, so if anybody out there is on his Discord and wants to let me know at Paul Shag on Twitter, if Krause doesn't have Witt on his card, then he doesn't think that his guy, like, he bets on his own fighters or like on his own fights and stuff. It's kind of in the NFL that you'd get banned. Calvin Ridley got banned for a whole year for like betting on games, $1,500. A guy who makes like millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, got banned for. It's crazy. MMA, we kind of just like it's a betting sport. Like we're kind of all about it, but. If Witt is not on Krause's card, back up the bus. Quinlan, round 1.
Nah, dude. Honestly, as the guy's buddy, it doesn't matter. You'd throw away a fight, right? Like Alexei Olenek fights or Jim Miller fights. You just spam bet them because they've made you money in the past and they've been good.
Like Chris Curtis fights week for me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's just a spam bet. It doesn't affect your money. It doesn't affect your overall picks. It doesn't matter if you're any good and you're going 8-5 on the card, 9-4 on the card. Well, what does it matter? You got one more loss. Oh, sorry. I would use it as my PRP pick. Oh, yeah, I'm going to use my boy Witt. And it's easy to justify. The other guy hasn't fought in like 2 years, coming off a steroid suspension, UFC debut. No idea if he's going to be able to take on a wrestler of the caliber of Witt. Witt's got almost, a dozen fights in the UFC. Like, he's racked up some experience. It all lines up for like why he could be a problem. And as his friend and his coach's mentor, you could spin it that way. But yeah, NFL guys get suspended for betting on a different game while they're not even playing. They're at home injured, away from the sport, watching it on a Sunday, bet some other team than the one they play for. And that's against the rules. Pete Rose is betting on himself, isn't he? Right? Isn't that the big thing? Who cares about that, right? What's wrong with that? In horse racing, the driver can bet on himself and only himself. So for Krause, I would say if you're putting down a wager, if I was Nevada or the bookmaker, if you're putting down a wager and it's against one of the guys you coach, if you bet Davidson Figueiredo over Brandon Moreno, if you bet against somebody, well, then that's clear conflict of interest because no one knows them better than their head coach. No one knows the situation, the weight cut, the injuries, the personal issues.
I don't think he's gonna bet Quinlan when his Discord is like, relatively public knowledge. But if he doesn't have Witt on the card,
James Krause is super smart though, right? He's super smart. I hope someone gets his Discord, and I hope obviously someone's going to do their due diligence. And he's a huge profile guy, so he'll quickly realize that the people shit on you quite fast if you don't put up the results. But I would like to see, I didn't watch the full interview. I caught bits and pieces, but it kind of came off as arrogant. Like he's saying like the most money I make is MMA gambling. The most money I make is MMA gambling.
Some of it kind of made sense though. It's like,
yes,
like a lot of my fighters are fighting like low level, like regional fights. He's like, I'm doing it for like the love of the game. I'm leaving my house on Wednesday and coming back on Sunday night. Like, you know, and a lot of them, besides Brandon Moreno, who's a champion, he's like, most of them are making, you know, if they're lucky, they're in the UFC, they're making 12 and 12, 14 and 14. Guys who are fighting on like Legacy are making like 5,000. He's like, I get 10% cut of that. So it's like, you know, it's like anything.
Yeah, but Paul,
until your fighters reach like the apex, not the UFC apex, the apex of the sport, like you're not really cashing in. It's like it's a risk, right? It's a risk reward kind of
Paul,
thing.
I would say the biggest thing that I've learned over the last 10 years, right, is that you can have success in this game. You can go in good runs, you can go in bad runs. But the number one thing is all the guys that are legit do not do this full time, right? Everybody else has a job. Even Johnny the Greek has a job. He sells a service. He goes on TV. He does broadcasts. You can go to his website. It is a job. That is the moneymaker. I work at Fight Network. I do matchmaking. I do the horses. I got literally gigs lined up. I'm going to Nashville next week and doing play-by-play on a sweet pro card, by the way. You can't rely on I had a good year this year. I'm going to have a good year every year. You can't factor in when the bad streaks are going to come. You can't factor in all that. No one goes around and says, I make all my money through MMA gambling unless they were fraudulent. That's what I've learned over the last 10 years. The guys like Vegas, Dave, the guys that are like, I do this full time, buy my picks, check my shit out. I've never cared for them. And so what I'm saying is James Krause is not making his money betting on this singular fight, is that he's selling picks. He's gone tout. And because he's James Krause, he fought in the UFC. He's a head coach. He's high profile. He gets TV time. He's pretty well spoken, and he's got guys in his gym. He's obviously going to be bigger than the average guy, right? People look at our show and say, oh, geez, you guys do 10,000. James Krause could do 20,000, 30,000. He's much bigger than us. He's an actual celebrity. We're nobodies. This guy fought. He went through it. Why wouldn't you want his opinion, right? And all of a sudden, guys pay $10 to listen to you talk, and you've got 40,000 of them listening to you talk. And oh, geez, when you look at that, I'm making over $250,000 a year selling picks on a podcast. But your picks don't got to be do good at all. That's why I don't want to sell my shit. That's what we said. Prize Picks has bought it. People can watch this free on YouTube because Prize Picks is sponsoring it. Going tout and telling people you guys got to pay me $10. Yeah, you might be good last week, but that doesn't factor in anything this week. And you love your guy. You've got an inside scoop. He is the lock of the week, and he separates his shoulder in the first round. And you got a guy. This is the guy 100%, and he blows out ligament in his leg in the first round. Like, even not that it really mattered with Anthony Smith, but I was like, this fight makes it to the third round. I had Ankalaev, but I'm trying to improve the terrible price tag on it. And then all of a sudden he just drubs Smith. I was like, what the hell happened to Smith? He quit in there? It's like, no, he broke his leg. Yeah. So those are intangibles, man. How can you say I make my money MMA gambling when you run a successful gym?
He's got 2,000 people in his Discord. I think that's what he was referring to.
That's the key. Yeah, that's the key. But I don't know. I just wouldn't want him. And listen, I like James Krause. Don't get me wrong. I don't got nothing against the guy. I'm sure it sounded like I was shitting on him there. I just mean to the average person, just, do your homework, right? Like, I don't know. Check out his picks. I'm sure they're good. I'm sure he knows what he's talking about. But this guy is busy. He's training fighters. He needs to do tape research for fights that matter to guys in his gym. He has a family. He's a business owner. Do you really think he's tape studying it as much as a fat nerd in a basement? And I'm not calling myself a fat nerd. I mean, there's some dudes in this game that are good at what they do.
Yeah.
And they're not all fat. Some of them are in good shape too. But they're obsessive. They're obsessive with one singular thing, right? Yes. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm the best. There's guys that put in the work.
I used to put in a lot more time taping. I had more time to do it earlier.
But life got in the way. Mid-30s, you have a dog, you have a house, you have a mortgage, you have, you're doing some different jobs. We switched from DraftKings over to Prize Picks. You've got things going on. Your mom's coming to visit you because you don't live in Ontario anymore. Your friends, you're making get-together stuff. That's just regular everyday stuff, right? If you don't have that singular goal, this is what I'm going to do, then it's hard to, I always say like Cody today's my birthday, I'm 31. Cody at 21 was better than Cody at 31 because he was hungry, man. Mm-hmm. He wanted to live with Pat Mayo. You put the work in, want to do this. I'm going to do it no matter what. If it kills me, I'll do it for free.
Because you couldn't afford to lose the money. You couldn't.
Yeah, and then the worst part of it was 10 years later, and you have sponsors, and you've done good, and you win the money, and then it's really hard to stay motivated and be like, I'm going to spend 6 hours tape studying, and I'm going to spend time away from my friends and family, and like I'm getting married, and spoiler alert, I got a kid coming in 2 months. So like, yeah, life does get in the way, and I'm not making that as an excuse for bad picks. I'm making bad luck, a couple bad decisions here and there. Like, I know we'll get back to winning ways. I just mean nobody ever stays the best forever because someone always wants it more. And who wants it more 100%. Is the guy that's hungry. That's why the UFC champion eventually loses to the hungry up and comer, right? James Krause, he's a little bit late to be like, I'm switching, dropping everything my life to like trust me, dude, I can name you half a dozen guys in this game that I know for a fact would be better than him. Not saying he doesn't got the eye, not saying he doesn't got, but he doesn't got the time. That's what I'm saying. He doesn't got the time to do what other people, do. And I just don't toot my own horn. I'm saying I would do the same thing, but I'm just, I'm not one of these, look at me, look what we do, look what us. It's allow the viewers to make up their own decision, right? So if he puts out a killer product and killer picks, he'll be the man. And I hope he does go out and do there. But just the bits that I heard from the Helwani thing, they're all the sound bites. It kind of come off as arrogant, like,
I'm the best.
Like you said, it's a 15-minute sales pitch for join my Discord and pay me money. He may
be amazing.
So that I can sit at home and
I saw a lot of the people
deal.
In our community were like pretty upset about it. I don't really care.
Were they? Yeah. Well, people look at envy and they're envious, right? Shit, I've been putting in this work for a few years.
This guy trains
and this guy
like
launches
fighter,
it,
like
and
he trains
huge.
Fighters and has a much bigger reach than dude with that's just the way the internet works. Like guy with 450 followers on Twitter. It's like until those are rookie numbers. I didn't really want to say it that way, but that's the way it is, man. That's just the way that this whole social media and content creation or all of this type of stuff. Like you have to have an audience to reach out to, otherwise you're kind of screaming into a void. Pat?
I was just going to say, like, I'm doing a bunch of NBC affiliate hits tomorrow for golf. I'm going to talk about on that. Play on DraftKings because I'm sponsored by DraftKings, and sign up for Fantasy National using Pat's code because it's a brand new audience that has never heard of me before. They don't know if I'm good or not, but like, hey, I got this product, and the product's really good. I love the product. And everyone who uses it loves the product. They're not picks on there, but it's something for me to sell to a brand new audience, and I can make a bunch of money on it. Like wherever Cody goes, he should be telling people. PrizePicks.com. Code DOP. Sign up right now. Yeah. Make money.
I was going to say, if you weren't sponsored by DraftKings, I was going to be like, if you don't mind, working in Prize Picks code DOP.
Pat knows how to do the. I get it though. Like I know how. Like that's a part of doing this. Like if you just want to be like, as Cody said, there are professional bettors out there, and most of those people don't sell picks. Like Pizzola's a professional bettor. Yeah. Who's on my football show? That's what he does for a living.
He doesn't want the hassle of like
selling picks
and having to deal with people complaining when the picks don't hit.
Yeah, he's just
like,
fuck it. I'm gonna bet like $20,000 on this football game.
Yeah.
But he doesn't.
There's tons of people out there like that. You just never hear from them.
And he doesn't have like 8 picks every week. He doesn't have 5 picks every week. He might have 5 picks if his weird algorithm tells him to bet on the 5 picks. But there's weeks he goes, he doesn't bet. He's like, it's a bad position. There are no good positions. Those are real bettors.
I'll tell you something. They're good bettors for sure. We wouldn't be doing the show if we thought they didn't exist, obviously. But I'll tell you a story when I was a kid. So I grew up next to these guys, John Cherry and his brother. Huge house, pool, place was balling. We'd go over there, use their hot tub. Good guy. So John, right, he was a groundskeeper at a golf course, right? It was actually a hell of a golfer, dude, like a scratch pro, like really good, or like a scratch golfer. But anyways, his parents passed away. They gave John $1 million and they gave Jim $1 million. Within 3 years, John is living in this multi-million-dollar house, wife and kids, boat, snowmobile, nice car. Jim lives in his mother. I don't want to bleep it out later in the show. Lives in the basement. Straight broke. $1 million. They each had $1 million. So John would go to the racetrack and he bets the horses every night. And Jim would also go to the racetrack, but he likes betting basketball and he likes betting a little action on the golf and he likes betting on the football. And he was a degenerate. He didn't have the money management ability. He didn't have the ability to just not chase your losses. He was the double down type. There's good gamblers and there's bad gamblers. These guys are full brothers. Both got $1 million. 3 years later, the situation. And I remember we're at this little bar, and I'm there with my dad, and Jim's sitting there, and we're watching. I don't remember who they're playing, but I remember it was the Atlanta Falcons. And I remember he's sitting at the table, and he's like, oh, Atlanta's going to kill them. It's 0-0. Atlanta's going to kill them. Atlanta's going to kill them. He says, first quarter, Atlanta's going to kill them. I'd bet $1 million. If I had $1 million, I'd bet $1 million on Atlanta. That's what he says. Nobody says anything to him, right? Second quarter, he goes, oh, man, Atlanta's going to kill them. If I had $1 million, I'd put $1 million on Atlanta, right? End of the game, the Atlanta Falcons won, and they were the dog, too. And he's like, damn, I told you, oh, man, I would have put $1 million on them. My dad looks at him and says, Jim, you had $1 million. Where is it? And that always like stuck with me to this day. Like, yeah, it's not what you can show on a bet slip here and there. It's like, what are you taking out of this? What are you taking home? What are you cashing out of the account? Like the optics of things are like super whack. But yeah, good gamblers exist. John did fine for himself. And even to this day, like life's been good to him. How to start in life, which is what I'm saying, is that to be a good gambler, you generally need a start, like you need, who's got an extra 10 grand to start a $10,000 bankroll? No, not the average person. So the average person puts $100 in. Well, in order to grind $100 into a couple $1,000 takes time, takes focus, takes dedication, right? Takes some good luck and some good bounces. That's a slow grind. These guys that you see, because Paul watches the fights, they'll say, oh, big better alert. Some dude just dropped 6,500. His bankroll's $100K. $6,500 is nothing to him, right? It would be like a 6-unit shot in the dark, right? Whereas to the average person, it's different. So, yeah, like that's
like
the part
Drake
about
says
the game.
He drops like
$1 million,
like $1 million on somebody. It's just like, well, Drake is probably worth close to $1 billion, so like that's nothing.
Someone said the same thing about Michael Jordan. They're like, he's got a gambling problem. And my dad's like, well, what do you mean he's got a gambling problem? They're like, he plays $20,000 a hole games of golf with his buddies. My dad's like, oh, well, I play $20 games of holes against my buddies, and Michael Jordan has 20,000 times the money that I have. Do you see what I'm saying? It's relative. It's a drop in the pan for him. That's a tip. The guy's got hundreds of millions of dollars. So yeah, he wants to play Jeremy Roenick for $100,000. You can't look at that like, oh, I could have bought 2 cars for that price. Well, you are not Michael Jordan. I'm sorry to say it. Neither am
Michael Jordan
There's a reason why we
wouldn't be able
work
to
for
buy
a living.
2 cars because he would not be caught dead driving in the 2 cars that it would cost to buy that. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw this thing on Morgan Freeman. It was like Morgan Freeman got caught cheating. This is a couple years ago, but it had the
Show's
accident
officially
report. And it
off
was
the
like,
rails.
tell Pat Mayo to look it up. Morgan Freeman car accident, and it's like a 2008 Altima. It was like, what? What?
He's like me.
It's something we would drive as a
I can
2008
afford a better
Altima.
car, but then I'm gonna have a more expensive car with problems. I'm just gonna drive my rust bucket into the
Unreal.
ground.
Unreal.
Paul's cruising around in like a $300 car.
I mean, I bought it
That
off.
he
Paul's
put
always been like
$2,000
that.
into.
He's a
I bought
minimalist,
it off of.
Paul
I
is.
bought it off of Pogie Rob for $500. But
It's
then I
still
had to put
going.
like $1,500 into it immediately to get it certified. So it was like it cost me like $2,000 at that point. And then recently I had to get like when I moved out to Nova Scotia to get it registered in Nova Scotia, I had to put like another $2,000 into it. But like I've been driving it for 2 years now. And yeah, I mean 2 years I've put, maybe $4,000 worth of
You've
investment
got your
into
money
it.
Cody was right, by the way. Morgan Freeman was injured in an automobile accident on the evening of August 3rd, 2008, when he crashed his 1997 Nissan Maxima.
Bill Gates drove like
It doesn't make any sense.
a 1980s Jeep. Like smart people don't push all of their chips into a car, which is a depreciating asset.
They do if they own a business and they can write that off.
Maybe you're still.
I don't know,
you're still
man.
Paying for it.
Well,
I
it
had
really
met the
depends
dude-
on what your expenses are versus the expense of that.
Well, I haven't got
No,
to that
well,
point in the game.
yeah,
I'm just gonna
yeah.
drive my rust bucket until the wheels fall off, and then eventually I'll get another car, and then, But like I'm always gonna be driving a crappy car. Like I just don't understand people who want to spend like tons of money on cars unless you just have that much disposable income. But it's like I would have to be like making 8 figures to be like driving $100,000 car. And that's never gonna happen.
Yeah, Pat's right with the write-off though. Especially you got a business. Like when I was a kid, I met I don't know his first name, Mr. McCain. He's the guy that owns McCain like super fries and the pizzas and stuff.
Heard of
like,
them.
Yeah, dude, he was a good guy. He was wearing, well, of course, it was at a cottage, but he was wearing like $5 worth of shit. Like he had like a plain white T-shirt on, like a cheap bathing suit, like some plastic flip flops, like didn't have a watch on, like super. But he did get into a $250,000 boat. So the boat, yeah, all right. He spent $250,000 on a boat, but like
he probably enjoys
himself, it wasn't like gold chains and a Versace shirt. It was like you're saying, like
super rich people don't want you to know that they're rich. Like that's how it usually goes. People who are like fringe or even like not even whatsoever, like, you know, like low level salespeople that like are just like they're paying car payments that they can't afford because they want to maintain some sort of image that just is completely out of touch with reality. I like how we got so completely. I thought this was the best part of, well, besides Max Rohskopf interview, but I thought this was
better.
This was a good part of
it's good better part than of the last two fights we got to talk about.
Yeah, we got Corey McKenna taking on Miranda Granger, minus 230 McKenna, plus 190 Granger. I think a big problem here is like I think I've overestimated Corey McKenna's wrestling ability. That is going to be the path to victory for her against Miranda Granger. I don't really rate Granger much, except for like, you know, a little bit of a long rangy striker in this division. I don't like McKenna cost me a whole bunch last time out against Elise Reed. I really didn't think like she was able to get a few takedowns, but she wasn't really able to like secure and hold top position. I wasn't able to like land enough ground and pound when she got the fight to the mat. She's obviously young. She's developing. Expect, you know, improvements from her, but I'm really, really struggling to hop on at minus 230 to back her in this spot. I'll pick her for the purposes of the show. I think that she should be landing takedowns, but yeah, I'm scared off by the price. She already hurt me last time out. What about you?
Yeah, well, much of the same. I think she wins, but I'm a little bit scared off. She's 23 years old, so it's a little bit young. And although she's making improvements, she's still very green in her own ways and limited ring IQ. So there's a strong argument that she did not win that Kay Hansen fight. At least it was close and competitive. She could be rocking an 0-2 record going into the UFC. And then the Elise Reed fight. Here's what I say about limited ring IQ. You're at a Team Alpha Male. Danny Castillo is your head coach for the fight. You've been working with Sarah McMahon specifically on your wrestling. You're taking on Elise Reed, who had lost her last fight because she was taken to the ground and relatively submitted with ease by a much larger opponent, of course. The game plan at no point is strike with her. Like, she's a long-rangey kickboxer who's a point fighter that will use every bit of space on the end of the octagon to just dance around you and you know, just land the cleaner shots. At no point should she have just stood in front of her. But Danny Castillo was telling her, you're doing fine. You're doing great. Keep doing what you're doing. They were not telling her, shoot for takedowns over and over and over again. So she loses the first two rounds, looks terrible. In the third round, she decides, I should wrestle. Gets the takedown. Won the third round. It was a split. It should not have been a split decision, but she should have just wrestled earlier. So I think for a young prospect to lose that, you can go to the drawing board and realize, where did I go wrong? Well, I should have wrestled a little bit earlier. Okay, fair. What's the best part of my game? My wrestling. What kind of team am I out of? A wrestling team. You got to wrestle. You got to get back to your roots, and you got to get right back to that. And with Miranda Granger, she's rocking a 40% takedown defense in the UFC. She got taken down twice at will by Ashley Yoder, who isn't exactly the most prolific takedown artist. None of this bodes well for her. The one thing that I will give her, though, is she's rocking like a 9.5-inch reach advantage. McKenna, 58 inches. I think it's the shortest reach I've ever seen in the UFC. And Miranda Granger is coming in with a 68-inch reach. So according to Tapology, it's a 10-inch reach advantage. Or sorry, not Tapology, by UFCstats.com. It's a 10-inch reach advantage.
Yeah.
And so she's been off for a couple of years. Like, she hasn't fought since her last time out against Yoder 2 years ago. And when you look at the girls she's fought, Amanda Lemos, Ashley Yoder, you know, more of the grinding type. If McKenna doesn't grind her up against the cage, if she uses that low ring IQ, if Danny Castillo tells her the same bullshit advice, which is, you're doing fine, which she was not, I don't know why he was telling her that she's going to lose this by getting jabbed from the outside. Like, Granger can crack. It's that I think that the loss will cause her to go to the drawing board, realize I need to wrestle. This opponent I can defeat wrestling. Small cage is the apex. I need to wrestle and do that. And if she does that, then she should win. But, you know, greasy low-level MMA fight, McKenna did blow one her last time out in a fight against Elise Reed that she should have cruised in. It wouldn't be crazy to think it happens again, but I'm hoping that the loss was actually good for her and that she comes in a lot better this time around.
Fair enough. Her total on takedowns is set at 1.5. I think she should probably cruise over it, but it is a bit of wishful thinking. Like, I mean, she still got over. She got 3 against Elise Reed last time out. Kay Hansen took her down twice, though, so it's a bit dicey. Finally, we got Stephanie Egger taking on Mayra Bueno Silva, minus 135 Egger, plus 115 Bueno Silva. Who you got here, buddy?
Yeah, well, I got a bad feeling about this card simply because I like Jamahal Hill. He's a big favorite. Vicente Luque, favorite. Zach Pauga, favorite. Julianna Miller, near even, but she is the favorite. Serghei Spivac, favorite. Lipski, I know you don't agree with that one, but yeah, I got the favorite. We both got Michael Oleksiejczuk, big favorite. Terrance McKinney, huge favorite. Bryan Battle, it's almost a 3-1 favorite the guy is. We think Josh Quinlan clips Jason Witt, favorite. Corey McKenna, we're both taking there, favorite. Ooh, what do you think the chances that every single favorite on this card is?
Good.
Yeah, not very good. And so one dog is going to come through, and I believe that dog to be Mayra Bueno Silva. Not simply because it's my last dog that I have the option of taking. I don't actually mind her all that good. Like, she's strong, she's physical, she lumbers forward and mixes it up. And I thought she was dead in the water against Manon Fiorot, who I'm very high up against. And she gave Manon Fiorot her toughest test. She took all of her shots. She continuously came forward. She was missing with a lot, but Fiorot was one of these Holly Holm types, Caitlin Chukagian types, where she does manage distance quite well, and she is quick-footed. So I'm not blaming her. Using that shoot-to-box style fight of being, plodding, flat-footed, letting your hooks go doesn't work well when you're trying to chase somebody. If you want to stand in front of her, she'll bop you up. As far as her jiu-jitsu goes, I think it's strong enough to stay out of the majority of submission attempts. She does a good job defensively. She is strong. She is powerful, durable enough. 3 losses in the UFC, again, all by decision. I think that there's some stuff to like there. Stephanie Egger, meanwhile, has very limited striking. Like, it's not good. And her takedowns, she's not a wrestler. She's a judo practitioner. She was a decent level judoka, the European level, but beyond that, she needs the fight to end up in the clinch. Specifically, it needs to end up in the clinch for a prolonged period of time. And so the fight with Shayna Young's more of a wrestler. So Shayna Young initiates the clinch and then ends up getting tossed to the ground and getting smashed. The last fight with Jessie Rose Clark just initiates the clinch and presses her up against the cage for the majority of the first round until late in it where it hits the ground and she throws up the armbar. Both of those girls initiated clinches with her, felt comfortable in the clinch, and played right into her game. Mariana Bueno Silva probably don't want to get this fight to the ground. She wants to push away, separate, and just clobber you. There's a big striking discrepancy. All she needs to do is sprawl and brawl this thing out. I'll admit, striker versus grappler, fight hits the ground, is Egger. Fight stays standing, Bueno Silva. But she's shown enough durability, tenacity, power, and ability to survive bad spots that I think she ends up roughing up Egger. So women's MMA, dog or pass, I'd take Bueno Silva at that plus 115.
I'll agree with you. I'm not going to lay money on it. My biggest concern with Mayra Bueno Silva, especially in that Fiorot fight, is that she went like full Chick Diaz kind of Bobby Green. Shades of Bobby Green, where it's just like she was doing that thing where you get punched in the face and then you shake your head and say that it doesn't hurt. I don't like putting my money on people who do that, because it's like all you're letting the judges know ringside is that, yeah, I don't know if you could tell from your angle, but she hit me clean there. But it didn't hurt. Trust me, it didn't hurt. Like, she hasn't exactly
Egger doesn't really throw a whole lot of strikes standing. You know what I'm saying?
Egger doesn't. No, Egger has to get the fight to the ground. I think her total on takedowns is set at like 2.5. I could see her getting over it, but Mayra Bueno Silva seems well-rounded enough. She definitely has the advantage on the feet. I would wait because I think you're going to get a better price. Like, when I look at all of the different books right now, the market movers have moved Bueno Silva up to plus 117. So when that one book moves it up there, everyone else will trail along because people are going to end up betting Egger on the other side if there's value, because she's minus 137 at this one book. And I mean, they originally opened this thing up at like minus 170-ish, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I'll take Mayra Bueno Silva. We'll see if we get there later in the week. For now, all I've really got is Julianna Miller minus 110 and catch a beating plus 150 on Prize Picks. I got 3 selections. That is Bryan Battle, under 2 takedowns, Jamahal Hill, over 30.5 significant strikes, and Jason Witt, under 2.5 takedowns. Place entry. Hit him with the PRP, Cody.
Jamahal Hill, we're going to use him at the top. Vicente Luque, he's going to be one of your top 6 guys. Zach Pauga will probably be like maybe fringe top 6, maybe like a 7 guy, but at some point he'll be used. Julianna Miller at that minus 115 will juice you up some serious odds. Paul kind of got me half shook with the Sakai thing. Like, I know I need another dog, and listen, we got low-level heavyweights.
He looks okay on the scales.
He's plus 220, man. The disrespect.
Yeah.
Like,
I can see him winning. I can see him knocking him out in the first round. Like, I totally could see that happening. And I think, like, his inside the distance number is, like, plus 400 right now. Like, if I can get, like, a plus 500, plus 600 Sakai by knockout, like, I'm probably going to play it. We'll see we'll see where the props open up.
You're not wrong about that. You are wrong about Priscila Cachoeira, so we're going with Ariane Lipski. We're going to go with Michal Oleksiejczuk. I would think you want to improve that and take the knockout. Terrance McKinney, you're likely going to want to do the same thing. But as Paul mentioned, both knockout props, not particularly all that appetizing. We are going to take Bryan Battle. Wait to see him make 170. We're going to take Josh Quinlan. We're going to take Corey McKenna. It'll be lower down. And we're going to go with Mara Buena Silva. I would assume she's the PRP pick. Unfortunately, if there's 2 at the bottom, was this a 12-fight card or 13-fight card?
12 fights.
12?
Yeah.
12? Then there's 2 people at the bottom. The bottom would probably be Maria Buena Silva and Augusto Sakai if I was to flip. Still a couple days, so we'll see what's going on there. And then we've already wasted a ton of your time. So if you're still listening to this point, you're like a straight-up diehard. Straight-up diehard. You're a gangst. So you might as well take the extra 5 minutes to check out this juicy PFL card. Right? So, again, they got them set up. This Alvin Espin, while it was, as the lines might be just soaring away on it. Let me bring up my book really quick. It was. I was making parlays last night. I was like, I usually don't care for PFL because, it's just a straight trap. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, like, sorry, I'm just bringing up the official line, see if they've changed all that much.
Anthony Pettis is basically a pick'em with Stevie Ray.
Well, he's a pick'em with Ray, and he just beat Ray. But
Omari Akhmedov plus 175 against Josh Silveira. That seems interesting.
Yeah, the ones to like lock on. So they're trying to build up this Brian Zurcher, like he's very young in his career, but Ricardo Jimenez is just no good. Elvin Espinoza, same thing. Like kid's an absolute stud, very physically strong, good power. Lucas Barbosa versus Elmar Umarov. You might be able to find some value there. Lucas Barbosa is like a jiu-jitsu whiz. I mean, one of the best in the world. Guy is phenomenal grappler. He's won basically every tournament there is to win. He's beaten everybody in his weight class. He's one of the best grapplers on the planet. He's taken a couple MMA fights for shits and gigs and has proven to be a pretty good MMA fighter as well, right? Nobody wanted to fight him. They were honestly, I got an email. Do you know anybody that wants to fight Lucas Barbosa on short notice? And they had better hope that they can grapple was the big thing. This Elmar Umarov ends with an OV. Sounds badass. He's an American Russian. He's been in America for quite some time. Here. Yeah. And he's taking the fight on short notice under the pretense that he knows how to grapple a little bit. Like, he's going to get snacked up here. And Barbosa's only a minus 128. Get some value there.
Minus 115 available to me right here. I see it going to minus 140 at one of the sharper books. Keep talking, Cody, because I'm betting.
But in terms, I think there's value all there, right? In terms of some of those tournament fights. So Josh Silveira is Conan Silveira's son. The dude wrestled for Arizona State University. He was a good wrestler in college. He's transitioned BJJ black belt. You see him win the LFA title. You see him make his PFL debut. He is only getting better. I've seen him fight 5 rounds. His cardio looks good. He's a good athlete. He puts it all together. And of course, he's first line, first string American top team with all the best coaches in the world. His father is one of the founders of Brazilian top team. Is like an absolute GOAT legend. He's undefeated and he's definitely getting better. He's much larger than Omari Akhmedov. So I know you're saying plus 160 on Akhmedov seems appealing, but Josh Silveira is just too big, too strong. Omari won't take him down. His best path is to go out there and just club him and try to knock him out. Although possible, MMA, you can definitely go out there and clip him. I think that game plan of just winging bombs will tire him out. Omari Akhmedov's not known for his cardio. At some point, Silveira is going to wear on him, and I think he'll break him down. Rob Wilkinson at Notes 325, good parlay material. Delonte Delon Monte, he swung bombs in his last fight against Sordi. Sordi's a former champion. The optics look good, but Sordi's coming off a knockout loss. And just look at the problem with the PFL is you don't get months off in between. It's like a 2-month turnaround, 60 days, 60 days, 60 days. His chin, gone. He was getting knocked out in the gym. Guys are telling him, like, dude, don't even take this fight. He shows up at like a 5-1 favorite and he gets knocked out. That's not crazy. Monty knew, I need to knock him out or I don't get in the tournament final, or I don't get into the playoffs, sorry. So he swung on him and he clipped a chinny guy. That won't be the case here. Wilkinson, better striker, better on the ground. He beats him up. Last but not least, the last one I will mention is Marthin Hamlet, although the line's starting to go on that one against Corey Hendricks. Corey Hendricks has already beaten Marthin Hamlet, although when you watch that one back, it's like, especially live, because I lost on Hamlet the first time, he dominates Hendricks for the first 2 rounds. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's got better wrestling. When he wants to fight on the ground, he can take it to the ground, and he roughs him up. But he had never been in later waters. He was very young in his career at the time, and so he gasses out late in the third and ends up getting submitted. Since then, not like you've seen a ton out of him, but he's a lot more mature. He paces himself a lot better. All those takedowns will be back there. And even though he lost the last time against Hendricks, I just don't think the late comeback theatrics will be there this time around. So honestly, between guys that are minus 165, you got a guy here. You could go with Pettis if you want to get real greasy with it, but between a 205 and Conan Silveira, a couple of the other bigger favorites on the card, I would say there's definitely some value in that PFL show on the Friday. So my plan was to crush up Contenders Tuesday, bankroll into PFL Friday, bankroll into UFC Saturday. Fans would have had a great time. Unfortunately, goddamn Ross, man, what are you doing?
He got knocked down twice. I mean, he had a lot of heart to just get back up.
That guy was scrapping for it, but it was like his brain wasn't making the proper call.
No,
imagine
he got knocked down like the first two, like after getting knocked down like the second time. You're like, he's still in the fight, and he his recovery seemed pretty good, but it's like kind of only a matter of time before he got cracked again. And boy, oh boy, did he get cracked.
Yeah, imagine it was like, I can do something. You're doing it. Oh, you got burned. Okay. Well, I'm doing it. Oh, I got burned. Then you're like, okay, I just won't get to that point. I just right before that. He was right before that. He was landing. Keep him up in his cage. Back away. Land 2, get out. Land 2, get out. And for whatever reason, his brain was like, yo, dude, Dana White said you actually got to fucking go out there. Just absolutely go for it. You're not getting a contract. And his brain was just like, contract. I'm 33. I need the opportunity. YOLO. And he just went full YOLO. And it was bad series of decisions. But yeah, listen, that's the betting game. All we can do is hopefully crush this PFL card and then furthermore turn that into a profitable UFC. So I am going to do a show 100%. I was going to do it today, but again, I got better stuff to do today. So I'll probably do it tomorrow early. And then it'll either be on my channel or I'll reach out to Pat. I might put it up in his channel. But this PFL actually looks pretty decent. I think it should be okay. And then, of course, we just broke down the UFC for 2 hours and broke down Max Rohskopf's career longer than anybody that I've ever heard talk to him anyways. So it's been a very, fun and eventful 2.5 hours, Paul, but hopefully we can make all of that time, all the effort. Yeah. And people invested their time listening to us and our ramblings of 2 psychotic fans and a switcher, Pat Mayo on the sticks. Then yeah, all we can do is reward them with some killer picks. So that's what my plan is as always.
Quad P, what are we playing here?
So the main play for the week, the 3X, so bet 250, get 750, bet 100, get 300, bet 50, get 150. Jason Witt under 2.5 takedowns. And I don't like that Cody's like talking himself off Spivac. When he first said it and he gave his initial breakdown, something I've had a lot of success is going with Cody's gut instinct before he talks himself out of it, over 1.5 takedowns. That's the 2. So we're going to roll those 2 in to the 5 play as well, if you want to play like a fun lottery ticket here. So you have Spivac over 1.5 takedowns, Witt under 2.5 takedowns, Battle under 2 takedowns, Luque over 54.5 significant strikes, and Paul's play Hill over 30.5 significant strikes.
Luque over.
If you hit all 5, you get 10 times your money. You hit 4, you get 2 times your money. You go 3 of 5, you get a kick in the nuts.
I like the Luque one. I was eyeballing as well. I think I could see. I kind of think this fight goes 3 rounds. And
if it does, that's kind of what you guys said.
54.5 significant strikes shouldn't be too hard to get
way
there.
over that every time it's not a first rounder. But code DOP at prizepicks.com get you a deposit match of up to $100. Hit the description, and there's a link that brings you right to it. So fucking do it. Okay? Thanks.
That is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. Want to thank Max Rohskopf for stepping up and in. Hope maybe in the future we'll be able to get him back on a little bit closer to his Bellator debut. Obviously want to thank the GOAT, Cody Saftic, for gracing us with his knowledge as always, and Quad P for all the sweet cuts, and obviously for his sweet picks. I mean, his picks have been doing better than mine. So for Pat and Cody, I'm Paul, saying goodbye and good luck.